Right. Good evening, everybody. What a what a day. Um, right off the bat, I need to be honest and say I am not feeling well. I've not been feeling well basically all day. I've been feeling particularly unwell over the last couple of hours. I did try to have dinner, and then that really made me feel pretty rotten. But I'm okay starting streams late. I've been starting them late a little more often than I would like. A little more often than I would like, but I can at least get a stream done. But I am feeling much the way that I did at the end of the last stream, and then combined with that, I'm getting ready for a really hard time in Stellaris, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But I just wanted to say I'm kind of aware of the fact that I've been taking longer to get started, and I'm going to do my best to address that. But today in particular, I'm really not feeling well. I was actually debating on just calling it, except that I did say I would try and stream around 8. And then, of course, there was the unexpected, kind of the unexpected absence before. Oh, this is a new one. I like that. But yeah, so it's not an ideal set of circumstances, but I will soldier on, as indeed I will in Stellaris. So right off the bat, it's worth mentioning I've been given a copy of Stellaris Nemesis, which I'm currently playing directly from the developer. Obviously, thank you for that. And I have been streaming Stellaris basically since the start with keys that have been given to me from the developer for promotional purposes. So that will include the base game, the DLC. The exceptions to this, I purchased the humanoids and plantoid species packs, and I'm not currently playing the aquatics, which is the most recent, or the necroid species packs. This number is definitely not true. So last stream I made a big blunder. I was kind of debating on taking the Julao system or not. I guess we'll never really know whether or not that strategy would have worked, but I kind of took the fact that station was like, so if you notice, that station has an FTL inhibitor. Mine does not. So I spent all this time investing in this starbase, thinking that the enemy could not pass me by. And of course, they did exactly that. And so I was sort of forced to take an unfavorable fight. And while I think there might have been a way that I could try and salvage this run, like I might have been able to salvage the run through sneaky means, I then had this terrible moment where he basically went crashing straight into an enemy fleet, and so like one of my full stacks is just completely wiped out. The other is in really rough shape. I'm debating as to whether or not I should heal them up, or if I should try and move past the cider system. I think I'm actually going to... It's a big... It really... A lot of this hinges on where this fleet winds up moving. So actually, you know what? We'll heal up for as long as we can. My hope is that they move south to the Minox system. What's probably going to happen is they're going to head straight for Natraxia Asaka. So the thing that I'm trying to avoid is another situation like last time, where I essentially go colliding with a more powerful enemy fleet. So everything is not completely lost. It's worth remembering that this is the expulsion war. So essentially, I'm going to have to pay them a bunch of money to settle the dispute, and I'm going to lose all of my Oh, actually, this is going to be a huge problem because I'm banking so much on the money I'm making off of this thing. Anyways, we'll see. But yeah, so we won't lose any territory. I am going to have to put a whole lot into rebuilding my navy. But if we can settle status quo, we're still going to have to rebuild, but I'll be in a much better position than before. So let's play out the war. Let's see where it goes. The one thing that I kind of wanted to say ahead of time is I'm feeling at a little bit of a low ebb with Stellaris, and it's not actually because I made some boneheaded moves last time around. I just think kind of crashing from one playthrough to another one has kept me a bit... Oh, speaking of FTL inhibitors, do you know if the AI deliberately pass around a station lacking one, or do they simply happen to pass it by if the warp point is sufficiently off to the side? That's a good question, Soggy Oily. I couldn't tell. I haven't tested it, so I couldn't tell you for sure. We definitely had a situation where the AI did not, like, they had a powerful fleet and they did not try to sneak around before, and then later they did. That's not the spot they did that. And so it seems to me like the AI will make a conscious decision to avoid it. It's marginal, right? Because if you take a look at, this path, it's, like you can kind of see how you'd avoid the, you could kind of see how you'd avoid the station. But I suspect there's a way that you could run a test, but I wouldn't be able to tell you with any authority whether or not it actually does that. The big thing for me was just I genuinely thought we had FTL inhibitors, and I very clearly would have made different decisions if I'd paid attention to it. But I own it, and I'm playing on Iron Man, right? You kind of need to eat those decisions if you do them wrong. But yes, like just in terms of the low ebb. So, but I will also confess, like I do out of all of. So one of the things that's kind of neat about the Paradox games is that for some of them, like losing a battle is not, or even losing a war is not the end of things. So like in Europa Universalis 4, you could be like really gung ho and like you could really. It could really cause a whole lot of problems for people, and you wind up in a coalition war, and yes, they break up your empire, and you are set back, but there's still hundreds of years of history ahead of you, and you can still become even a dominant power, and to a certain extent. That might be true for Stellaris as well, but I do kind of notice in my revealed preferences that I just tend to find that I have fewer sort of redemption stories. I tend to either like beat the crap out of the AI a whole lot, or I get clobbered and it's just going to be kind of a clobbering forever. So I am definitely going to try and see this thing through to the end, but it's kind of tricky. It really depends in terms of where we're at. It's entirely possible that in 10 years they decide to sort of expand out and eat the rest of my empire, and there's really nothing I'm going to be able to do about that. So we'll see. Again, I don't want to be too pessimistic about it, but I did just want to be kind of upfront in terms of saying that I think when I'm done this, whether I'm done soon or whether it takes me a while to finish up, I may put Stellaris on the shelf for a little bit and try and play something different. But we'll see, right? If I feel like Stellaris next week, if like let's say that I just get completely demolished this time around, and I decide, and I kind of call it quits. And if I feel like it next week, we might do another species, because I'm trying to disentangle like what I'm feeling like right now in terms of just feeling very unwell, and then having to deal with a mess that I made last week, and just a general feeling that I think I need a little bit of a disruption in the streaming schedule, especially because it would give me a chance to do more Phantom Brigade and Industries of Titan. Anyways, like I said, let's play out the war to the end.
Lost.
Okay. So the question here is where these ships are going. Interesting. Okay.
Anomaly detected.
Resonance imaging of the N01463 asteroid suggests an internal composition consisting of rare crystals. So basically, we've got 660 days to bring them up to 100% war exhaustion.
Starbase.
Who's coming for the starbase? Oh, perfect. That was one of the things I was going to try and get away with, actually.
Resource scan complete.
So I'm going to stop them right... Okay. So we want to stop right here. So we want to make sure that they are on their way out. Yeah, okay. So now I can reclaim the space while it's weak. Okay. So what I was originally banking on was sneaking my fleet around and taking out that little group on my own, but it looks like they voluntarily sort of threw themselves at my base. So, this is a concern. Oh no. They're totally gonna meet us.
This tech had better generate some revenue.
I'm calling shenanigans on that. We're cooked. The only thing we can hope for is that we jump out before they arrive.
Planetary exploitation.
Looks like they're heading somewhere else. Okay. So I think here, let's go quantum energy states. This is just preparing for the possibility that we're going to lose a bunch of energy. Okay, they're still going to chase me around. That kind of sucks. While unremarkable on the surface, the N01463 asteroid has a hollow core lined with industrial valuable crystals, like a gigantic geode hung in the stars. With special instructions prepared by Science Officer Tidoralek, any future mining platform should be able to carefully harvest these crystals from the interior of the asteroid. So, I'm not going to lie, I think this is a bunch of crap. I mean, maybe they noticed me moving in, but the whole reason why I moved the way that I did was the fact that they were moving elsewhere. So see if we can send them on a merry chase, but this is really going to cramp my my efforts to reclaim some systems. Well, at least these guys are back. So we've got 543 days. The war exhaustion's slowly ticking up. This is ridiculous, by the way. In fact, I wonder if I can give them some bait. Okay, so this fleet's not going to do wonders, but it is enough to try and take some... it is enough to try and get some hardware back, so we are going to... I'm really going to play with fire here and bring a second fleet into the arena. Timing may not work out too well in terms of the pursuit that's going on here, though. The big problem is I'm not sure how long it takes me to push ahead a. I'd love to make a new world, but we're not quite in a state where we can do that. So we need 224 to take that thing on. So yeah, what I'm going to do is again try and send them on a merry chase, so that I can buy enough time. Basically, so I can buy enough time to get a fleet through the gate.
Another bleeding-edge technology discovered.
Gradual adaptation to the realities of deep space combat allows us to effectively coordinate larger maneuvers. Okay. Moving on. I guess an off-road trading company is our best bet here.
Boom! I found something!
This toxic and lifeless world appears to have once been inhabited by a modestly advanced pre-space civilization. The ruins of their cities are still strewn across the surface. Okay, we're looking at 400 days. So it's pretty unlikely this is going to turn out, but...
Research complete.
Never say never. Tarblack secured. After an extensive search of the seabed on Awikriki 3, using a small fleet of mini-submarines, the crew of the ISS Irid Sak finally managed to corner the elusive target of their search, a live Tarblack. The shimmering creature, which defends itself by emitting faint psionic signals that produce a sense of dread in most organics, was brought aboard the science ship in a special water tank, simulating its natural environment. The crew members on the ISS Irid Sak that came into direct contact with the Tarblack will require extensive therapy, but the mission has been a success. Okay, so I'm going to try and cut some corners here. Our survey of Wemal 2 has revealed that it used to be a pristine continental planet with a mild climate and as little as 1,000 years ago. In stark contrast, the atmosphere today is extremely toxic. The surface, highly irradiated, and the world has long since lost the ability to support life. We have detected signs that the planet was the scene of an incredibly destructive thermonuclear war waged between factions of a relatively advanced indigenous pre-space civilization. So just the natural ticking war score might be enough. This is so stupid. Something just dropped in the other room. Lazy Raxarai wouldn't be any good to us even as slaves. Peace might be the best option after all. I cannot believe we got through that. So this is extremely in character for my species. You know, obviously the rum runners trying to, you know, always trying to find an angle. And in this particular case, but it looks like we lost. Interesting. So it looks like it still took away our bases, which doesn't sound like status quo to me. Lazy Rexar. Sorry. So all branch office. Okay, hang on. So wars ended status quo. Attackers effects all branches owned by the Natraxian rum runners in the locks. Oh, so they're giving us money for closing them. What? All right, I gotta look at the wiki for this because this type of war does not make any sense. Okay, expropriation. So the goal is to expel the corporation. No commercial pact or federation present. Corporate empire has at least one branch office on an owned planet. So the victory effect. Corporate empire loses all branch offices on attacker planets. Attacker gains 1,000 energy per branch office. Status quo. Corporate empire closes all branch offices on the attacker's planets. Corporate empire gains. Oh, okay, I get it. So the best I could have hoped for. So essentially, unless I clobbered them, those offices were always going to be closed. But by getting the status quo, I got money, and more importantly, I have the resources to be able to rebuild them. Okay. Wow. I'll accept this for now. So, but still, with that in mind, right? Being able to just kind of zip around the periphery for a period of time, which is the way that we ensure that we're able to make money out of that. It's still very in character for my species. So, one thing that's big here. Uh-oh. So we can't open the branch offices until after the truce is done. That's a real shame, because that's obviously going to take a while for us. Okay, so I got a couple of ideas. Originally, I was going to hang on to this so that we could move our branch offices back in right away, but it seems like we have to have it seems like the truce is going to get in the way. So I'm going to acquire an asset just simply because I think we'll have the 30 in time. So moving on. We also have... No, we do not yet have the information we need on this world. So I do need to get... I can't remember if my envoy is currently... Yes, we are currently... Oh, and we've actually maxed out our... infiltration levels. So we don't have enough to acquire an asset. I think in this case we're going to have to gather some intel. We may also want to consider doing some kind of defensive pact with the Nar consciousness, but I kind of need to pick my battles right now. So let's upgrade and heal. Send the new ship back to home. Yeah, everything should get an upgrade. So one of the first things we need to worry about is rebuilding my fleets. And I don't remember what I had done before, but I bet one of these designs will have... Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to open up a new notepad. Wonder if it would be a viable strategy to make a presumably small part of my fleet made of ships cheap with high evasion, with the intent of having them detach when wanting to avoid an enemy fleet, either baiting them away or hindering them away long enough for the main fleet to get away. I mean, that's kind of solving a problem that was built from a bit of a stupid approach that I had before. So I think... You know, depending on when the next war is, I'm not entirely sure I'm going to have to solve... Okay, actually, I'll put it to you this way. If I have to solve the same set of problems that I do in the next war, it's going to be a war of conquest. And they're going to win. Like, basically... I'm in trouble. So for me, I think I should get back to a point where my fleets are big and scary, and you know we're ready to just go toe to toe with this rival empire. I can definitely play the diplomatic game as far as getting a defensive pact in place. But yeah, I mean, I don't 100% know what I do about the strategy. I think the biggest thing is that you do lose war exhaustion. For even like with those high evasion fleets, like you're going to ultimately lose some ships out of that, and that's going to make the war exhaustion go up. Even just losing the encounter will make the war exhaustion go up. So we definitely were at a spot where we had ships that could take on the enemy fleet before, and I think we can get back to that level again. It's just going to require some considerable effort, especially because we have really driven up the price of alloys. So we're going to have to just sort of eat our main stock. Anyways, I'm really curious when it says this branch office is 147. I'm curious what the real number is going to be at the end of the month when it realizes we don't have those anymore. Okay, so it was 1, 5, and 21. I mean, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but that is definitely my experience of the game. I have always found a more aggressive approach. It's one of the reasons why, you know, as I was talking about before, why out of the Paradox games, which I think as a whole are rather good for handling the, you know, okay, I got beat up, but I'm not totally out yet, kind of situation. I think as a whole, Stellaris is probably the weakest in this regard, because it really does feel like the game puts a very heavy emphasis on your ability to sort of impose your will on the galaxy, and they're improving in terms of some of the other manipulations that you can do. But in general, I do tend to find that there's a big reward for having, you know, big mean fleets. I know some people have said that it's one reason why pacifist empires are not very fun to play. And I'll be honest with you, I actually haven't really played a lot of pacifist empires. Maybe that's a challenge to try next. Okay. Sorry, I wanted to take a second here. I'm a little confused by the information it's giving me here, because it says... Oh, I get it. No, it's talking about the total. Okay, so originally I spent... Huh, okay. So apparently I put 21 into corvettes, 10 into destroyers, and 4 into cruisers, where normally I want to divide things. So an easy division with a 60 fleet cap is just 30, 30, 30. Although I guess you can't get 30 from 4s. So let's say I'll do 8 cruisers. This will be the new fleet design. So that's 32. So let's do 28 in terms of the destroyers. So 14 destroyers. So that evens it out. Wait a minute. Am I an idiot? I'm pretty sure I just used up the whole 60 there. It's 20 for each one. Okay, so yes, I can do 5 cruisers for 20. 10 destroyers for 20, and... So at some point I do need to figure out a better composition for everything, but... And in fact, one thing I also kind of want to work out for myself is based on the current requirements for shipyards. So for this, it's 147 times 20. So that gives us 9. Is that right? 147 times 20 is 2,940. Both of my mobile devices are in charge right now, so like I have a tablet that I normally keep beside me for these notes. 2714, 248 with the 1 it's 9. 294. Okay. Destroyers are 299. So the easy way of doing it on that one is just round it up to 300 minus the 20. So you get 280. And then add a 0 on it, so 2,800. Wait, that can't be right. Where is it? Oh wait, I'm doing 10 of them anyway, so it should just be 2,990. That didn't need a whole lot of brain power. So the reason I'm doing these calculations here is I've always kind of wondered, sort of pound for pound, how expensive my different options are. So when it comes to cruisers, I'm only going to be building 5 of these. So it's 617, so we've got 30, 35, 38, 5. I do want to write down the cost right now, though, 617. Okay. The other thing to consider is the power that they all bring to the table. Mind you, they're all banged up right now, so I don't think I'm going to get a clean read off of that. So it's 156. Maybe my ship designer will tell me. No, why would it give me the... Why would it tell me how powerful this thing is? That's not interesting information for a ship. So my corvettes are 87, my destroyers are 156. Now, obviously, you can't rely too heavily on this number, right? Because, you know, you could have 2 fleets of 2,000 power. You know, one is equipped with kinetic weapons and armed with shields, and like defended with shields, and then the other one is, armed with beam weapons and is also carrying shields. And the first fleet is basically custom designed to eliminate the rival fleet, whereas the other fleet is going to be putting its weapons are going to be going into sort of the hard counter, and its defenses are going to be shredded by the enemy by the enemy weapons. So, these are more general ideas. But what I'm trying to do here is, so basically the way I've worked it out for each of these fleets, I'm going to be spending 2,940 for 20 corvettes, 2,990 for 10 destroyers, and 3,085 for the cruisers. And of course, it's worth remembering that if you bring a fleet... So I'm not 100% sure how this works now, but I know one of the things that Stellaris has had to struggle with are the relative strengths of its various ships. So, for instance, if you brought, like, I don't know, like, let's say you had like a battleship, and then you had, let's not make it crazy, like, let's just say a bunch of corvettes of slightly less strength. I think in most cases that battleship is going to lose because it can only ever fire at one target at a time. Whereas all of those corvettes are going to be focusing fire down on a single target. So yeah, you're going to lose some of them. I mean, a battleship is a serious thing, but you're not completely lost in that situation. So in this particular case here, right, which is if I'm going to be going for my cruisers and they're going to cost me the most and I'm going to get the smallest number of ships out of it, I kind of want to make sure that I'm actually getting the power from that too. So, and that's kind of an open question for me right now. So, for instance, with the, so I don't know, so we'll say like 156 times 10 ships, so that's 1560. So it's 299 times 1560. There's no way I'm gonna be able to do that in my head. Sorry. So basically we're spending about a little under 2 alloys per fleet power. Now we can compare that to the 87 times 20. So that's 1740 fleet power. And then we divide that into the cost, which is 2940. And we're spending a little over 1.5 alloys per point of fleet power. Now again, the thing is that as soon as, like, that's not, all of these things are going to be approximations. All of these are things that are going to work into your overall calculation. Because one of the risks that you have with corvettes is that entity is not going to stay in combat for the full duration. Chances are things like corvettes are going to be taken out in favor of protecting, the more powerful ships. And those more powerful ships are going to be staying for a longer period of time and dealing that kind of damage. So there's a lot of variables that aren't necessarily present in these kinds of calculations, but again, it gives you kind of a picture in terms of what's going on. Here's a question I have. So let's try and find two ships. They're all roughly the same health. I'm gonna guess that the military power. Actually, here's what I can do. So let's just take this corvette, which is clearly damaged. So this says 82. Compare it to a full-strength corvette, which is 87. Okay, so it's not that big of a difference. With that in mind, though, I'll still, I'll still build this all up. Okay, so I'm still kind of working on long-term plans. So, like, here's the biggest thing that I need to consider about right now. They're currently overwhelming. They've got a lot more territory. They are in a position to really create some hurt on us. So what I need to think about right now is we've got the truce. The truce is going to last for 10 years. Am I going to be in a position where I feel like I can defend myself against them in 10 years? So here's the first question that I'm going to have. So I've got 116 naval capacity. That basically means that I can field 2 full-strength fleets like this. Now, to field a full-strength fleet like this, I need to spend 3085, and then I need to add 2990, which was my destroyers. I finally opened the Windows calculator because I'm I'm not good. Okay, so that's a total of 9015 to field one of these, to field a full one of these fleets. Well, how much in terms of alloys am I generating per turn? In this case, we're generating 44, I think. Let me just double check that. Yeah. So that's going to take 204 months. Well, that's 17 years. That's twice as long as we need to. That's twice as long as we need to, before the war can get called on us. Now the good news is. Well, actually, I mean, so first of all, the bad news is that's for fielding one of them. The good news is we are already part way on one of these kinds of fleets. So actually what we'll do is let's combine all of these. Oh no, they're upgrading. So let's just take stock of what we currently have. We've got 1 cruiser, 3 destroyers, 13. I think we had 2 destroyers in the other fleet. Yeah, 2 and 3. So that's 5 and 16. And then finally another corvette, so we've got 17. So to fill out our first fleet, we need 4 cruisers. We need 5 destroyers. And 3 corvettes. Okay. It's obviously a huge outlay for those cruisers, but and that'll get me to a full strength. That'll give me a full strength fleet off the top. I don't know what the power of that fleet's going to be. That's a tomorrow me question. Actually, you know what? I should calculate the. Night Valian, you will not believe the nonsense we got away with. We had them chase us in our own system for basically the first part of the stream. And it caused the war score to tick up enough that we were able to do a status quo. So they still closed my franchises. But we basically got reparations for the damage that they, or for like closing the whatever you call them. We got the reparations for closing our businesses. Which is very, very Natraxian Realm Runner. What I'm doing right now is just trying to work out my overall plan in terms of building up my my supply of alloys, or sorry, building up my defenses. Okay, so by the way, for those of you who do not know Night Valian, Taxman came for you. That's a really good way of putting it, Night Valian. For those of you who don't know him, Night Valian's been playing a wonderful RPG called Chrono Trigger. He's apparently playing a mobile port that was put onto Steam. Anyways, he really likes playing old games and indies, and he's a soft-voiced Brazilian who streams every day, and is a very easy recommendation for me to make. So, I am recommending it for you. He's also very good at hanging out and making me feel special, which is the opposite of what I do with everybody in their streams. I have no idea why you're nice to me, Night Valian, because I'm certainly a complete pain in yours. Okay, so the 4 cruisers are going to cost 2,468. The 5 destroyers are going to cost $299 a piece, so $1,495. And finally, the 3 corvettes at $147 a piece are going to cost $441. So the total cost for one full-strength fleet or sorry, the total cost of refitting one of my fleets up to full strength with this new pattern is going to be 4,374. And at 44 a month, that's going to take 99 months. That's 8 years to get ourselves up to... So yeah, basically we can get one full strength fleet ready to go 2 years before the war comes for us. So clearly what I need to do is find a way of boosting my alloy acquisition. Now, one thing we are going to be able to do is start buying alloys again, which I need to get I kind of need to get I need to get things rolling on that as soon as possible. And of course, the goal for me is definitely going to be to get those cruisers online as quickly as possible. So let's just see if there's anything we can do. So ships and buildings. So the buildings are the biggest cost for alloys. That interests me quite a bit. So I'm assuming that's just in the maintenance of these different buildings. What do I do about this? Oh no, it's just energy for the upkeep. Okay, I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure where that building's cost for the alloys comes from. But it doesn't really matter, because the one thing I am definitely going to do is keep building cruisers. Now, how do we deal with the unemployment? Well, basically, we're just going to load up any of the systems that aren't full. So, 1, 2, is it Faraday? No, Dolok. Ducarex. So I can convert the hydroponics farms into something else, given my where my food's at. Let's move them on to Subra. There's a couple things I want to do now. So we've got Ducarex. So right now this station is producing... Well, in net it's producing 15, but I actually, in this case, I care about the total. So in total, this is producing 35 out of the slave labor. So the immediate question is, what could I replace this hydroponics farm with that would be better? So mineral purification actually makes a slightly better choice. But I'm probably not going to be able to do that to every hydroponics farm. So, as an alternative, this is producing 36. So actually this is a slightly more efficient one. But if I replace this, I can replace it with an energy grid, and that will improve my overall energy production. So this is my industrial station, so I think it's kind of obvious what I want to replace. Oh, okay. It's producing 34. So what I would replace it with here would be alloy foundries for additional alloys. And then finally Subra. Subra already doesn't have. Okay, cool. So honestly, energy is going to be how I wind up getting a lot of stuff. So in this particular case here, I am going to replace the hydroponics farm with an energy grid. And once that happens, we'll just distribute the slaves elsewhere. for instance, we can expand the farmland. Let's say, we're going to have 3 new slaves, so that means that I should build 2 more farms on... Yeah. So I still don't have an answer as far as the alloys are concerned, but we'll work towards it. Also, actually, it did occur to me, I can convert a world to a Gaia world. So I believe that's happened. Yeah, Stellaris, that's already happened. So our other option is the Castor system. So that does eat up some of our alloys, which is not a favorite. But the important thing is it lets me get my Bale. It rightfully belongs to us. Lox Ingshak Va Royal States has audaciously laid claim to the Lishval system. So this is them kind of preparing their invasion already. On the surface of GF-53-426 sits what appears to be a large machine of unknown origin and purpose.
Ship status, cutting edge.
Okay.
Resource scan complete.
So one of the first things that I need to do is get those FTL inhibitors in, because as soon as I do that, we augment my fleet strength by 4K. And of course I can invest in the... oops. I can invest in the... yes. I can invest in the defensive stations as well. Alien machine. Further scans suggest that the machine is still operational, though its purpose remains entirely unclear. Science officer Tjurlek has never seen anything like it. Some of its materials look familiar, but most are strange and utterly alien as the design of... are strange and utterly alien as the design of its components. The machine has what appears to be a console, with one item in particular standing out, a large crooked lever of unknown material. Pull the lever, or take it apart. We're pulling the lever. Energy spike. As our scientists pull the lever, the machine emitted a huge blast of energy that multiplied shockwaves, twisting and rippling through the void, tearing open a wormhole in Shorax. After the residuous energy diffused the wormhole and the immediate area around it settled and now appear to be stable enough for safe passage. As for what awaits us on the other side, the scientists are not so sure. The machine itself has since returned to its inactive state and no longer gives off any anomalous readings. How strange. Now take it apart. Or, intriguing. Research the machine. Well, oh, this is in my system, so let's go for the long-term investment here. Where did the +7 go? The ISS Irid Nas has entered the Sol system, and its crew report that a stellar object not unlike the Shrine to the Untold is indeed orbiting the star. Okay, so this was currently on an automatic check, but in this case we're going to investigate. So I either hit the wrong button or it totally didn't give me the +7 physics research. So I don't see it anywhere on the map. Through hard work and experience, Governor Robodev has developed new skills. Nope. We can upgrade the Habitat Administration now. Good news there. So I'm a little worried about this consumer goods. I'm actually not quite sure what's caused the sudden drop. Looks like we lost all our specialists on Grunner. Okay, so repairs are down. Plans to build a cruiser when I can afford it. So part of the plan is over the course of this 10 years, I'm going to be investing in I'm basically going to be buying up alloys, but right now what I want to do here is get that price down so that the, kind of like my credits basically go further. In this case, we'll just automatically commence when ready.
Research complete.
All right. After days of activities that can be best framed as fiddling, Science Officer Forlek has retrieved the Doctrine of the Undaunted, a textile scroll coated with a sturdy plastic polymer. Fascinating. So I'm just going to eat into my consumer goods for now. We will... I'm kind of hoping that this is going to resolve itself over time, but we'll see. I'm probably going to have to do some resettlement in a little bit. Okay, yeah. Now, I would suspect that these slaves are not very good at generating energy. Yeah, 11.2. So let's take... So I want to double check that it is Grunner that... Yeah, Grunner's going to give me the food. Slave soldiers. Interesting. Okay, temporarily unemployed. I'm not too worried about that. Oh, I screwed up. That was supposed to be Salura. That was a bunch of energy credits I rather wish I didn't spend. The ISS Iridnas has entered the is it Burfio system? And its crew report that a stellar object not unlike the Shrine to the Untold is indeed orbiting the star. So, as before, we will direct the ship to investigate. So part of what I'm trying to do here is just make the most of my existing resources. So here we still have a surplus of 57. We'll maybe wait for the month to turn over. And if this means that I have a chance to... kind of migrate a few more slaves, just so much the better for me. I'm going to be able to, I'm just going to be able to put some more... basically, I'll just be able to put some more people in higher value roles, is kind of what I'm trying to say. And the birth of the galactic community. Several spacefaring empires, some of them unknown to us, have banded together to form a galactic community. The supranational institution is to serve as a forum where important matters can be discussed. Although we were not involved in its founding, the other members have extended an invitation to the Natraxian Rum Runners for formal membership. Should we accept? Yes. Oh my god. Alright. We've made first contact with mysterious aliens in the Othanier system. For now, we've codenamed them the Confederation of Zaco until we can find out more about them. If they possess a language, we should decipher it so that we can assess how much of a threat they pose. The Readied Shield. The universe is a dangerous place, and all the members of the galactic community should be ready to defend their worlds, whether against pirates, space creatures, or the unknown. So our ship upkeep would go up, our naval capacity plus 10. In this case, we're trying to... in this case, we're actually trying to kind of hold off from... like we don't have the money to build more ships right now, so I'm gonna do an opposition here. Now, unfortunately, we don't have enough intelligence on everybody else's worlds as far as being able to expand our criminal empire. But of course, this is where if we had more envoys, we'd be really happy. Also, sorry, I know I said I was sick, but this is going to be a perfect example. MJ Stevens, I don't know if I said hi to you already, but I'm slightly worried that I didn't. So if I didn't say hi to you before, hi now. I apologize. I'm doing my best to keep it together. Yeah, I mean, it would be wonderful to talk with people. In honesty, the Nar consciousness is going to be the only thing that acts as a buffer against the locks on Grakva royal states. And I do want to... I do want to work towards... I do kind of want to work towards protecting myself. Okay, so... The Enlightened Kingdom of Conorimus would like to establish an embassy. Sure. As would the Elemented Concern. I can see that. And Defensive Pact. Oh god, yes. Alright. We would not want to drag your empire into a conflict, but it is clear that we would benefit from joining together against possible threats. I agree wholeheartedly. I was actually going to work towards that, but they gave it to me, so... Well, I hope you feel better soon, MJ Stevens. But yeah, I started the stream feeling rotten. I am, you know, like I am slightly amused at what an in-character way we managed to sneak out a like a tolerable ending for the fight. But yeah, I don't know. It's today's stream is just going to be a struggle for me. I wish I could say different, but you know, I'm gonna put a brave face on and see if we can continue to tell the story. Right now, I really want to invest.
Let it go to voicemail.
I really want to invest a lot in making sure that these, that all of these. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to make sure that we have enough to defend ourselves against the royal states, if not invade them later. Okay, who wants an embassy? The Techaris Link, an industrial production core. We aim to establish an embassy on Kirox's private stash for the future betterment of Technaran, the boys' diplomacy. Okay, the Mirovandia Imperial Sons want to close a border with us. And the Confederation of Zaco also want to close it off. We've allowed you to move freely through our territory for too long. Today we draw the line. So, first thing we do with my new ally, not alloy. Oh, I don't have enough intelligence on their worlds. I was totally going to open criminal enterprises on their planets, but we do need to boost the intelligence. So they've been establishing embassies. I'd actually really like to do the same. So let's just see. Yeah, they don't want to do that. So I'm assuming everybody's already... oops. Yeah, so the embassies are already established. I'm going to assume that... I mean, actually, sorry, I should kind of do this properly. So if I can get a non-aggression pact, I will get a non-aggression pact. If I can establish an embassy, I will do that. They really sound mad at me for for someone who opened an embassy. Oh wow, they've already got Federation. Interesting. So I'm assuming we already had, yeah, we already got an embassy. Poilan tribes, I believe, are in the... Wait, really? Okay, well, they don't want to have an embassy, even though they're Federation builders. Yeah, so the AI basically kind of already worked out all of the different kind of trade, or all the different deals that could be struck. Am I still getting... Yes, I am still getting alloys through trades. So, there is going to be another thing that I try then. Who likes me the most? Are you willing to trade any alloys at all with me? Okay. So let's work out exactly what we're giving up for that. So that's 144 for 29. That's a rate of 5. That's actually a pretty good deal. I'm kind of cutting myself off at the knees. Okay. See if we can sweeten the pot with some minerals. Oh, they don't want any... Wow, that's interesting. I just like straight up give them stuff and they don't want the minerals. Interesting. Okay, I don't want food. Oh, but if I make it... I bet if I made it monthly, they'd be okay with it. Okay, so I definitely have the biggest surplus as far as food is concerned. So let's play around with the numbers a little bit. So what I want to do right now is preserve financial capital. Okay, I gotta put a little sweetener in. Sweet. So we're going to have a whole bunch of extra money to kick around here. Now, the ideal here is that we're going to be slowly transitioning our food production off of our habitats and more onto worlds. So in this case here, I've just wound up buying, 29 more alloys. I think if I try and add anything else, they're going to get mad. And I did it. 45 energy credits is nothing. 41, I definitely feel the pinch a little bit more as far as food is concerned. But again, we're going to be slowly transitioning towards more food production on Siluria. So I'm happy with that. Also, okay, sadly I do not have the ability to remove the blockers. So we've kind of maxed out as far as our farmers are concerned at the moment. This also gives me some ideas in terms of what I need for tech moving forward. We've allowed you to move freely in our territory for too long. Today we draw the line. Anything for our most valued customers. Never forget who brings you the best deals. Rexare, the Eliminid Concern. Okay, so let's go back. See if we can find some more deals. The Tecarus Link might be okay for some trade. Okay, they're not completely opposed to it. See how many they're willing to give up. So one of the things that's kind of nice about these deals is that you can run them for as long as possible. It's more likely that they're going to default on it for after 30 years because we're kind of taking everything that they're producing. But again, I'm happy to run with it. So I need to make sure that I don't give up more than 30 food. Say 20 is the limit there. So if I were to give them minerals, how would they feel about that? Okay, what about energy credits? Maybe cuts a little too deep. Yeah, I don't really see how I can make the... I don't see how I can make the numbers work on this one. They're a little less willing to trade. And I'm going to guess that's going to be true as I move down the list. It's a deep, deep cut.
Ding, ding, ding.
The Nar Consciousness want a research agreement. I can work with that. We have much to learn from one another, Raxar. We propose the creation of a research agreement between our empires. Okay, things are looking up. Alright, they didn't like that. But I still think we have the contours of a deal. So again, the idea here is to get as many alloys in so that we can bulk up for a fight with the Royal States. We can cancel these trade deals later if we have to.
Planetary exploitation forecast complete. Boom! I found something!
Material composition of this asteroid differs significantly from its neighbors. It is likely it likely has a different origin than those other bodies of this asteroid belt and should be investigated more closely.
Imagine the profit margins on this tech.
Old Gods, Shrine to the Percipient. Science Officer Forlek has reported back with the ISS Irid-Nass's findings on the Percipient's shrine. They recognized early on that a text in some logographic script is inlaid in the walls, heavily distorted by layers of translucent lacquer. Initial attempts at unscrambling the text, relying on the raw processing power of the ISS Irid-Nass computers to reconstruct the text from plain images, proved fruitless, as if it was simply too distorted to place any known lingual in any lingual family tree. Next, the crew of the ISS Irid-Nass attempted bombarding the lacquer with light of varying wavelengths and intensity, but no beneficial reactions were observed. Forlek apparently considered physically separating the lacquer from the inlaid text, but realized the strange glyphs would doubtlessly have been made misshapen to begin with, only to reassume a proper shape when viewed correctly through the lens of the lacquer. Science Officer Forlek was about to call the mission a failure when, looking up, they immediately as they irritably paced along the edges of the circular space, they realized that discrete lines of cohesive text were momentarily forming before their eyes, melting away only to be replaced by new lines. Not long after, they had the ceiling, walls, and floor imaged in a spiral pattern. Text from other shrines should help us piece this all together. Alright, what did we get? Quantum energy states, so another big windfall energy-wise, which is not bad because we're going to give up quite a bit for those trade deals. Basic entanglement principles applied to energy generation provide a substantial increase in energy output. Okay, wormhole travel is a very, very tempting option here. Let's go for it. One big thing right now is I need to get my Empire Sprawl under control. They really don't want to take this deal. I mean, the game's telling me that it's a good deal, but clearly something's causing them to say no. So let's bring this down to 30. Actually, tell you what, here's what we're going to do. It might be that their calculation is different based on the end of the month. So let's see what we've got to work with first. Okay, so I'm going to go for 30 this time. I'm willing to go up to 30 on food, 20 on minerals, and then we'll put the balance for energy credits. That's a number I'm willing to work with. Also, can we toss some consumer goods? So it'll be less than 100 by the end of it. Ooh, that's too much. We'll build our own. Yeah, we'll let the 2 surplus stay put. Let's see if they take that one. Although it is difficult to accept, all indications point towards asteroid 91F03 being a coprolite, a piece of fossilized feces from some kind of massive life form. It appears to be almost 1 billion years old, and much of the fossil's original organic composition has been replaced by mineral deposits. Our scientists are baffled as to what kind of creature could have produced something like this. Truly, this is about the majesty of the stars.
Boom! I found something.
Okay, they took the deal. So again, we're going to be hurting a little bit as far as energy credits are concerned, but the thing is that we've always wanted this energy. We've always wanted this energy to buy alloys, and we're getting the alloys from other species now, so we don't have the same need to kind of keep investing the way that we have. All right, the asteroid G1-3254 is emitting some form of radiation in controlled bursts. Is something trying to communicate with us? I've also got an idle science ship, which makes me sad. So this is... I can maybe see myself researching... no, we got a few that we can work with. Can survey a few systems too. Obviously, I'd love to do more growth, but we're really in the woods as far as the Empire Sprawl is concerned right now. After much deliberation, High Queen Gomosh Longshore has decided to accept your trade proposal.
Resource scan complete.
So I want to be a little more conscious of my alloys. We've got 110 a turn, so I should be building up pretty quickly. Yes, okay, so our research station has got... Wait, why is it a research station? Isn't this supposed to be focused on producing... goods? I'd like it to be a research station, I just don't think I can afford it to be. Let's give this another I mean, let's face it, it's got to be an administrative office, which is going to kill me as far as my consumer goods is concerned, actually. But let's go. Bureaucratic station. I think that was always the intention for it anyway. What's going on there? Okay, we found an archaeological site, but probably too far out of our territory. Cells. G1 3254 is partially hollow. Within its interior spaces sprawls a dense honeycomb structure crafted of some unknown alloy, housing containers of alien genetic material. By all appearances, it is an archive of life, the genetic record of some earlier civilization come and gone. Most of the DNA is hopelessly degraded, but there is still much to learn here.
Imagine the profit margins.
If you can give me a second, I actually need to take a second away from the keys. Partly I need to get a glass of water, and partly I just need a minute to myself. Again, I'm not feeling 100%, so I'm going to take a quick break. I will be back as soon as I can, but now's a good time for you to grab something to drink yourself. Oops. Alright, sorry about that. I've been debating about tea to try and quiet my stomach. I'm not sure eating anything is going to help, but I did get a little bit of bread and honey, and I don't know, hopefully it'll make me feel better. Alright, sorry to be such a whiner about my current state. Trade across interstellar distances presents a new set of challenges to overcome. It is critical to achieve the transfer of goods from one system to another in a timely and above all efficient manner. So if I can get anything to clear tiles, that's best. We don't have that. So the next step would be something cheap. So either centralized command or interstellar fleet traditions. As much as it would be nice to have the Fleet Academy and Naval Logistics Office, I'm not going to be building any more star bases for the time being. And I've used up all of my slots. So in this case, centralized command makes a little bit more sense. So max occupation garrisons +2 and a military garrison. And I think we might have a specialist for... Nope. Oh, yes we do. He's leading engineering. That gives us a 108. And... actually, let's just double check. Okay. So I'll try not to eat directly into the mic. We're not too worried about the time it takes to produce cruisers and such yet, because we have 10 years. It's the question in terms of how quickly I can get my alloys.
Resource scan complete.
An operative resurfaces. A long-expired set of covert codes has just been reactivated. They are linked to operations we previously carried out in Lox Ungrak Va Royal States, from where it would seem a former operative is trying to report back in. The message is light on details, but the code carries markers which signify intelligence on key political figures in a foreign empire. Our security advisors confirm that the codes were valid until quite recently, but their expiry means that such codes are open to compromise by foreign powers. There's no telling if the operative or that message are genuine. Former agents are to be disavowed, ignored this, or ready the extraction team. Ooh. This is a tough one. Let's do ready the extraction team. It's not the smartest choice because I'm already trying to rebuild my spy network, but I want to see what it gets us. Disavowed operative return. Our once disavowed operative has made it back to the boys' space. This Lox Ungranok Van individual, who identified herself as Torba Namta, appears nervous and relieved, but has cleared all security verification. The debriefing has been described as arduous, but the information has proven to be useful. We now have gained access to a valuable asset. With the matter now resolved, Torba Namata's shaky disavowal will be renewed. Having confirmed that she is no longer missing in action, our current operatives can ensure that this time the disavowal will stick. Gain an attaché asset for use against the Lox Ungranok Va Royal States. Okay, that's good actually, because that'll boost our... Ooh. So basically, we're going to give up a bit of power for the to acquire an asset, but we now have two. We've got the attaché and the veteran, so that will give us a max infiltration level of 70 when all is said and done. Many wondrous things pass through our hands, yet we never line our pockets. This is the sacrifice that we make so that the construction of the Tessar Tarvel is completed and our children may one day see the Holy Land again. Show us your wares. We may present May we present you with one of our finest spiritual leaders, level 9 Shakva, with enhanced mind focus and inner gaze. Under the goddess's guidance, business on your worlds will flourish. All we ask is a small donation and credits. As always, if you need time, to consider, we can notify you before we depart your territory, giving you one more chance to accept the goddess's generous offer. So, it's not that expensive, so sure, deal. Blessings upon you, Rexare, for your business brings us closer to the goddess. Okay. What are we looking at here? So, I like this for the consumer goods upkeep. This might actually get us out of the hole. The roving Tianki are not only a nuisance, but they're a navigational hazard. The presence of these unpredictable creatures cannot be tolerated in the galaxy's increasingly busy space lanes. Ooh. We are opposing that. Pangalactic recycling initiatives. This is a tough one, because we do want diplomatic weight from economy, but we do also want to improve our goods upkeep. So we'll support that for now. And the Guardian Angels Act, lower fleet power weight, better defensive army morale, and higher army upkeep. I'll support it too.
Anomaly detected.
Sensors are reporting a number of possible points of interest within the dense debris field surrounding 13S88. Okay, ship's on its way to Castor, or will be in a week.
Ships upgraded. Prospect analyzed.
The debris field, which YU-5915 is part of, roils and swirls under the influence of unknown forces. Okay, sorry about that. So we've got our Agar world. More than enough housing. Corporate culture site wouldn't be a terrible idea. I think I'm going to hang on to the spare slot, though. I feel like there's more that we can do with our districts before we throw any more resources at Siluria Prime. Alright, Caravaneers, old with defects. In our starbase in the Fuela system reports that the Winds of Fortune fleet has evacuated and abandoned a decrepit ship, now in unstable orbit around the system's central star. So one man's trash, we can search it, let the sun swallow it, or tow it to the starbase for disposal. It's tempting to go for the consumer goods. You know what? Tow it. Yeah. Until we get to a positive number. Oh, and not quite the same moment that it is in other empires, but Governor Kirox has died at age 93. So the founder of Kirox, the Natraxian Rum Runners, Kirox's private stash, has died in retirement. So again, usually the death of the founder is a bigger moment for some of my species, but here it's a little more muted. Okay, we only need one more cruiser, and then we're sort of full in terms of where we need to be. So we're actually well ahead of things as far as our allies are concerned. Also, look at how much energy we're producing. We've discovered the fossilized remains of a gargantuan gastropod, matching no previously encountered life form trapped within a huge block of ice circling 13S88. Its eyes glare fiercely ahead, tentacles reared and muzzle twisted into a gruesome grimace. As if locked in a silent shout, the creature displays no apparent signs of sapience. Despite its eerie visage, our scientists believe that if domesticated, the creature should make a valuable asset. They recommend extracting some of its DNA for cloning. Clone it, space this abomination, or it belongs in a museum. We will clone it. So 7 months, what would we give up for that? We don't need the garrisons that much. So remember, we're going to turn this to a Gaia world as soon as we can. And time for a tradition. So we've only got one option here for mercantile, trickle-up economics. Our society believes that wealth is created at the bottom and then funneled up to fuel the state. Clerks produce an additional trade value. Oh, that's going to make our economy explode, I think. So we're currently at 135.
We really push the envelope on these ships.
Oh, yes, I definitely want to form the galactic market. De facto galactic trade, unbounded by international diplomacy, has existed since first two interstellar species met. As galactic leaders, we should agree that it is time to legitimize this commercial forum so that all may benefit. So I'm going to pursue that pretty hard. Alright, our upgrade's in, so I'm going to have to kick out a couple ships, but... Okay, so we want a total of 5 cruisers. I think we said 10 destroyers, 20 corvettes. Oh, maybe we don't kick out any ships. I thought we had one corvette too many. Where are my notes? 5 cruisers, 10 destroyers, 20 corvettes. Okay, well, I won't question it. So normally I would want to get the cruisers built right away. Actually, let me just double check. So we've got 3 more coming up. We have 2. Yeah, so we're maxed out on cruisers. What I want to see, though, is how strong this thing is at full strength. Like, once we've filled up all the slots, how strong is this thing in practice? So I'm actually going to move on to destroyers now. Once that's done, then we are going to go pretty hard on producing cruisers when we can. Also, the price of alloys are still falling, so we can't buy any more.
Resource scan
we should be
complete.
Fine. Also, I'm hoping we'll get a little bit of a kick in the pants as far as our research is concerned. Okay, we're drowning in cash, so we can afford to do education and recycling. Recycling's kind of a necessity because of these consumer goods. Oop. And I've got a science ship that's sitting idle. It's never a good spot.
We analyzed some debris.
And space torpedoes, physics, society, and engineering. Okay. Senate floor is in session. The galactic community is now voting on a new resolution to decide if it will become galactic law. Okay, so I'm going to guess that that's the... Yeah, we are voting in favor of the galactic market. It's a little early for me to try and... I'd prefer if I had a little more time to pursue that goal, but...
Research complete. We did it.
I'll work... I'll work with what I've been given, right? We've successfully cloned a healthy population of gargantuan slugs from the fossilized DNA. They reach maturity within weeks, weighing up to 20 tons, and have developed a primitive level of sapience, responding to simple one-syllable commands. Though they have yet to show any violent tendencies, they produce a thick, toxic mucus when vexed, and their hue seems to shift with their mood. The research team has named them Asians for the hissing sounds they make when they communicate among themselves. So they'll make excellent laborers. They belong in a zoo. We could use them in the army, or they're horrendous. Dispose of them now. Excellent laborers. We definitely need more bodies. So, plasteel is an elastic material that combines many of the qualities of plastics and metal. It is relatively cheap to produce and can be used to augment ship armor. Okay, Star Fortress is tempting but very expensive right now. Carrier operations are probably where I want to go. And as always, I just want to see if there's anything I can do to unlock FTL inhibitors. Looks like there isn't. So, I mean, again, if I want, I've got space torpedoes as an option, but I think the hangars win. I'm assuming this is where the laborers wound up. Yep. They're not that bad at producing stuff. So, normally I'd put them on this world. Do we have any? Yeah, we do have a couple of Raxar on this world, but... Okay. So the big question is, do I have... So I'll move one onto Grunner. Actually, here's something I can do. So if I move these to... This may not work, but... Ah, nuts. Okay, so that's unemployed Raxar. So if I remove these Raxar to Subra... Let me just make sure Subra is the one that has... Yeah, that's the one with the jobs. Alright, so we are getting some bureaucrats. I mean, the catch is that it's going to come at the more bureaucrats is going to mean more upkeep through consumer goods. I think we're okay. And of course, once the market comes out, we should also be able to... Something really wrong about having... Having this worked as a tech job. Let's see what happens if I put him on Subra. Unemployed, huh? Well, I guess that makes sense because there's no basic level jobs. So what if I sent them to... Okay, so we got one working as a miner right now. Okay, so then we'll send this guy back to Subra. Cool. We just got a couple new bureaucrats. Again, presumably we're gonna pay through the nose, consumer goods wise, but we're getting a little bit closer to where I want to be. Cradle of Life. 4 gas giants enshrouded by a vast plasma field share a close orbit around the Tiana Vec system's primary. The charged plasma field extends well into the atmosphere of these gas giants, and this unique environment serves as a breeding ground for a large number of spacefaring organisms. These organisms are all minuscule, with one notable exception, the massive Tianki. This system must be where they originally evolved in the galaxy. Given the extremely rare properties of the system's plasma field, this is likely the only place in the galaxy where the Tianki can reproduce. Oh, well. I suppose if I want to get rid of them then. Fascinating. I don't think I've ever seen the Tianki birthplace before. Okay, so we got 3 destroyers. I need 2 more. So
Prospect analyzed.
I've got a few long-term plans as far as the Empire is concerned. Again, the first thing is that we need to rearm. Following that, there's a couple of other steps that I need to take. So clearly we're not in a position where, we're not in a pretty healthy spot as far as consumer goods are concerned right now. I do also think my science is lacking a bit, but again, I kind of got to pick my battles right now. So we need to find a way to get our hands on more consumer goods. The good news is that manufacturing habitats are some of the easiest things to produce. Also, maybe it's worth noting here that I am starting to get a little short on food, but I don't think that's going to be a long-term problem. Part of that we're giving up in terms of trade. Actually, in terms of trade, we are giving up 71. So we're producing ridiculous amounts of food. It's just that we're trading it away right now. And our food problem's largely going to be solved by clearing out the tile blockers. So I do want to make sure that I'm kind of producing enough consumer goods to be able to take care of the Empire. So at some point I'm going to build another habitat. What I am going to be focusing on right now though is, so number one, I need to defend my territory against what will almost certainly be an invasion force. So right now they still count as overwhelming. We are trying to build ourselves up to a point where we can give them a run for their money. So first thing I need to do is build up to my existing capacity. Oh, Enlightened Kingdom of Khan Aramis has ended our trade treaty because they lack the alloys to maintain it. So this is one of the reasons why I do these kinds of trades, but I'm going to finish the thought first. So priority number one is to make sure that I have enough ships to be able to actually take on this force. Now, it's worth remembering that right now, what I need to worry about is an invasion, not necessarily me taking territory off them. I do want to get to a point where I'm going to be able to do that. I'm just not at that point right now. So the first thing that I need to make sure is that they have no reason to come after me, or better still, that they think they can come after me, and that I actually have enough waiting to obliterate them. So definitely one of the things I want to focus on, if I can, is taking that Julao system as early as I can, because it'll give me presumably access to the FTL inhibitor. So the fleets, I mean, clearly that's the first priority, to get myself up to the fleet cap with as many ships as I possibly can. Second, I want to make sure that I've got as strong of a defensive position as I can. So that's going to mean the Siluria system. Unfortunately, my allies basically cut me off. I mean, one thing I could do is just leapfrog them and snag these systems for my own. But again, we're still over our Empire Sprawl, so I don't want to be messing around with that right now. So once I've hit my max as far as naval capacity, then I can start investing in my star bases again. That means building Siluria up to its strongest capacity. That means maybe building a few more sort of defensive positions for myself, and then also a few more habitats and such. Once all of that is done, what's likely going to happen is I'm going to have more naval cap, which means I can build more ships and so on and so forth. And if all of that gets done, then we can move back and maybe roll back our alloy trades. But we're pretty much always going to want alloys. We're pretty much always going to want to improve our military. So I don't ever think we're going to hit that point. So one of the reasons why it's kind of nice to try and take your trading partners for everything they're worth is that you're basically able, so I'm not actually committing myself to 30 years of this trade. I'd love it if I could get 30 years of this trade. That was actually a pretty good trade for me. But so they can't support 30 anymore. Or apparently they can. So I'll put it down to 29 just for safety. Actually, really I only want 10 years worth of this. So I'm spending more for the same amount of alloys. A 10-year deal seems to make a little more sense in this context. Also gives me a little breathing room as far as the food's concerned. So if we chuck a couple... How much does that actually change stuff by? So 89, so that's by 2, it's by 1. Okay, well, we'll chuck 2 at them. Probably don't want to give up that much more in terms of minerals, so... Ah, now it looks a little more favorable to them. Okay, well, again, we'll... So again, do I actually think this is going to last the full 30 years? Nope. I think they're going to have more alloy production problems, but if they can't meet the requirement... Actually, that does sometime... Let me just double check that I'm not savaging myself. So I know sometimes breaking trade agreements creates animosity. But I would assume I should be the one who gets mad about that, not them.
Research complete.
Snirren secured. Snirrens are large burrowing creatures that live beneath the dunes of the vast equatorial deserts on Vega B3A. When these predators sense movement in the sand above, they immediately raise dozens of tall spikes from their backs in hopes of impaling something edible. Finding a suitable specimen proved difficult at first until hundreds of tracked remote-controlled drones were dispatched across the desert in random directions. This led to the discovery and procurement of an unusually large specimen that had grown more than 100 spikes on its back. Okay, they like the deal. The Enlightened Kingdom of Khan Arimus has decided to accept your trade proposal. Okay, looks like... Oh, and they ran out of alloys again. Alright, so let's... I don't want to... I think this is changing the relationship. So let's make this 25.
Debris analyzed.
Right, Gunner's got enough space for an upgrade. So if we can, obviously we want to fill up the factories, but we'll see whether or not we can pull it off. And what do we have? 3 destroyers coming up. I think we needed 2 more. Dimensional Pocket. The ISS Irid Rock never made it all the way to YU 5915 to study the anomalies surrounding it. The ship, along with Science Officer Toldox and crew, blinked out of existence as it was navigating the debris field, and then reappeared minutes later. Toldox reports that they found themselves briefly in some extra-dimensional space. External viewports revealed that they were surrounded by countless ships of alien design, suspended in seemingly endless void. Before the crew could get their bearings, the vision abruptly faded and they found themselves back in regular space. However, roughly half the crew are missing. Science Officer Toldox speculates that they may have been selectively trapped by some unknowable mechanism in that strange space. I think this one gets me an extra science ship. Okay, so that'll fill me up on destroyers, and we just need 3 more corvettes, and then I can start building my sort of my other main fleet. The Dimensional Drift. The missing members of the ISS Irid Rock's crew, thought lost to the Dimensional Rift, have reappeared. They hailed us from aboard an unknown vessel not entirely dissimilar to our own science ships, idling close to where the ISS Irid Rock originally experienced the dimensional disturbance. They claim to remember nothing of their time outside our dimension, aside from a vague awareness of having been away for some time. They wish for nothing but to return to service under Science Officer Toldox, and intend to surrender their ship to Rexaran authorities. So the safety of the Rexaran people hinges on their destruction. Very well. So, free science ship. One of the reasons I wanted to take that is because I have, or at least had, an idle scientist, so we can send them out on adventures. So sorry, I think I said I just needed 3 more corvettes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep.
Prospect analyzed.
So as you can see, we're doing pretty well as far as alloys are concerned. I don't want to spend too much time on it, because I know I've spent a lot of time doing sort of the spreadsheety stuff. But it is going to be what sort of determines my empire's survival moving forward. As far as I can tell, these are not going to be the strongest allies when the fight comes. Spymaster Toxodl reports from Lox Ungarak 5A Vaz Royal States. A successful execution so far, we have lured an underappreciated member of the Lox Ungarak Van citizenry, whose attitude and contacts amongst the lower rungs of society are sure to aid our operations in various ways. So we did lose the infiltration level, but we do have the asset. So what this is going to translate into right now, we're at 22. Wait, what? No, wrong group. We're at 44 of 75 now. We've got three different people, 2 of which are good at sabotaging star bases, by the way, so that might become valuable for us in future.
I found something.
Small cargo pod has been left to drift in space above this gas giant. It has been captured by the planet's gravity well and will eventually be pulled into its atmosphere. Alright. I'm a little surprised I'm not able to set up some offices on...
Preparing planet for resource extraction.
This is one reason why I want to put more into my intelligence operations. I also know we'll get more information the more we trade with people. Oh, perfect. So we will start by establishing a branch office. I want to be conscious of my influence. I'm not so worried about the energy cost, though. So, for starters, we need consumer goods. So, concealed drug labs. How is it for crimes? That's a 25. The research labs are where the real money is. So I think we're going to do what we did before. So we'll do a concealed drug lab and then a research lab. And we're going to see how many times we can repeat this. Ideally with high value locations. Index Gnome, how you doing? Express mail. Once by the way, you're not going to believe this, but we actually got a status quo. I can tell you the story if you want. Express mail. Once ISS Irid Fick got close enough to scan the cargo pod, it was assumed that the sensors were malfunctioning. The pod is built out of the exact same alloy we ourselves use for spacebound structures. The likelihood that some alien beings would come up with this exact mixture is beyond unlikely. Yet after recalibrating the scanners, the same results appeared. Upon opening the pod, the only thing greeting us was a collection of documents detailing exactly where we should assign each of our scientists, and what they should study for 10 years forward. So this is too unnerving, or send the note backs to Kirox's private stash. Yes. The war I was bound to lose? Yeah, I mean, I was very doubtful. I really appreciated the nice words in chat saying that I could still win it. So the one thing I didn't realize was that for the extractive casus belli, or the expropriation, unless you outright win the war, you will always lose your operations. So this is one of the reasons my consumer goods are in the toilet. But other than that, basically, I mean, it was dumb as hell, but like true to the style of the Raxarians. I was originally going to try and take the different star bases, and that didn't turn out because I essentially waited for them to start moving on the Lishval system, and then I made a move into the system. And like, I kind of know what happened. The AI noticed that I was moving into the system, so they decided to, to stay put. I still think that's I think that's a really lame move that the computer can do, because clearly, no, it was that was everybody else, or not everybody else, but I had one believer. So thank you for that. I don't know if they're here tonight. Actually, that's a shame if they don't get a chance to see it. So basically, I was certain, like, I had a fleet that just moved in with the 4K barreling down on them, but what I got to do is basically just Benny Hill it in a big circle. So they had both of my fleets, they had both of their fleets chasing me, but they weren't chasing me in a way that actually cut off my path. I was able to sort of move around in the big circle, and essentially it wasted their time. So what happened was one of their nearby ships moved into the starbase, so that boosted the war weariness based on losses, and then just the natural ticking amount kind of took care of the remaining 2 or 3%. And so that allowed me to settle status quo. Now, the one thing I don't like about it is that if you settle status quo, what happens is that the enemy compensates you for destroying your corporate buildings, and basically you can't rebuild until for the duration of the truce. So they got what they wanted anyway, which is to get rid of these sources of crime. You basically need to bring the gunboats in to keep the trade going. But I don't know, like given what we were staring down, the fact that they had to compensate me for closing the closing the businesses, I mean, that's not bad. But I mean, absolutely, they definitely made the right play there, because the fact of the matter is that I was making like 100 credits a turn off of the corporation that was in the office that was in the capital. It brought their crime to 100%. And, like it's 10 years where they're not going to have that. So what they paid me, I mean, is 10 months, less than a year of what I was earning off of it. So, okay, so now that I know I can't necessarily build offices on every place, I'm kind of tempted to capitalize on what I can. Yeah, so these are all worth like 1. The real advantage is just through the ability to build okay, well, it's 3,700. We're not going to be able to build too many of these. But concealed drug labs and research labs. I think I'm just going to do this pattern for all of their worlds. At least the ones that I can hop onto. Nope, we don't have the influence. It is, in fairness, that's a really far away.
Anomaly found. Hey, can we monetize this?
A small space station of some kind has been built in a stable orbit around this asteroid. It appears deserted. Kind of looking forward to when I can turn this into a hangar. What am I looking at with... Okay, so we gotta wait on Castor. In the meantime, we are building... Okay, we need 2 more Corvettes. And then now we turn our attention towards building the second fleet. Jesus. Yeah. I don't think
exploitation forecast complete.
I don't think you said exactly how much that that car was, but I hope you're feeling better about that, by the way. But yeah, that is quite the God, I'm trying to think of the appropriate term. God, I was just reading it in a finance textbook as well. Or not an economic. I was thinking of real business cycles and shocks. Anyways, the moment is past. Automated mining base. We have detected an automated mining base built in close orbit around asteroid UT9T668. There are large chunks of the hull missing, and the jagged holes indicative of heavy weapons damage. The station is beyond repair, but salvaging it will provide us with valuable minerals. Not exactly the thing I need right now, but I'm not gonna say no to more. Okay, so we've grown into another building slot. The thing is that I don't really think there's anything I want these people to do right now. You have no wish to die with money in the bank. I mean, it is why. And this is actually one of the things I've always found difficult with the. It needs to move around anyway. Yeah, so like this is one of the. I mean, there's a wonderful economics paper. Maybe for when I like if I do a special Christmas stream, I should you know, I should consider it.
Planetary exploitation forecast complete.
But like it's basically on it was basically on how Scrooge is actually the hero and he's harassed by supernatural forces to spend his money. But like this is one of the things I find tricky with this is one of the things I find tricky with a lot of financial advice, because you know you'll kind of get some of these personal finance gurus who are always like, oh my God, you buy like a Frappuccino? You're just pissing money away. Shame on you. How could you do that? Now, to be clear, you know, if you've got like 20 grand on a credit card, you know, charging you interest at like 20%. In Canada, like the rates are obscene. Like it's 20% is kind of the standard rate. I know in the States the interest rates can sometimes be a bit lower, but clearly you want to be a bit mindful about where that money is going, because like just so much of that in interest, like just being able to like not have to get those kinds of interest payments can be such a big deal. And I mean, I say this as somebody too, like I did turn down the Ubisoft job partly because of the debt thing, right? Like I'm like in that final stretch. I can see, you know, I actually sat down and kind of did my check-in to see where I'm going, and quite literally my birthday gift to myself, by July of next year, I will have paid down the credit line, which kind of I racked up to go to school. And you know, I don't regret it. I loved school, you know, and I do, you know, like the idea of doing something to, you know, earning something to pay it back. But the fact of the matter is I took the job that I'm clearly not very satisfied with right now, out of financial necessity. I'm now not moving to an alternative out of financial necessity, because basically the payment would have been like a really big bonus and sort of profit sharing at the end of the year. And obviously if you have a plan of like monthly payments every month, you don't want to like cut those in half all of a sudden. But the fact of the matter is like wherever you are, and this could be if you're making, you know, pots that you don't need to, you know what to do with, or, you know, you're barely scraping by. Like the whole reason we go to work is to get the stuff that we want. And like, if that Frappuccino or that like cup of coffee that you didn't need to like clear out the grounds for is your thing, I really don't think those personal finance people have any business saying like, you know, how dare you, right? Clearly, again, if you're putting yourself in a position where, I mean, essentially, if you're buying it all on credit, you can't afford it. And nobody's suggesting you get things you can't afford. But I've always been really bothered by this idea that people are kind of making these judgments about what is and isn't a good use of money, right? Like, you know, the book. So like, here's a great example, right? I mean, so I like the amount that I'm paying off is not that much. It's just, you know, like I'm putting a little bit every year, and then as of July of next, you'd hope your moral compass would be the reason to turn that. Okay. Well, I mean, look, I'm not going to be honest. I'll be honest with you. I've always felt, because it's actually a really important one. It's not. I was not indifferent to that factor. But I had a conversation with someone who works at a company I would really like to work for. And they had suggested that, you know, I do some practice runs, because you don't want like your dream job to be the one where you're doing your first application. And like the Ubisoft one went really well. It's also really clear they're losing a lot of talent. So the thing is that as an opportunity, that's not a bad one, right? Because like all the good people are going. So if you feel like you're an up and comer, you know, that's opportunity. On the other hand, for me, the appeal of working for a larger game developer would be to actually learn the ropes. And so then there's the question about the mentorship. But, you know, I'll be honest with you, like Ubisoft is not my first choice of an employer. And the question just comes down to, am I going to be able to get enough from the from the experience to move on to something I want to do or really want to do, or is this just going to be sort of potentially putting myself into another spot? But I'll be completely honest with you, like it was a total financial decision. And even then, right, like the year-end bonus, it's like, okay, yeah, I just throw that all into the credit line. But the thing is that I am not really wired that way. Like, I've got this plan, it's less than a year, and it's all gone. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I still owe myself $30K because I took sort of savings that I'd put aside when I was working in film that immediately went into school. So in terms of rebuilding myself, that's another question. But that's money I'm saving for myself. That's not really. I don't think that's fair to say that I'm paying down debts in that case. But yeah, no. The biggest thing is that I know that for these kinds of things, there's a lot of people who are going to say, oh, well, school's good, right? You're building your human capital, you're blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, well, for all my human capital, I seem to be very bad at picking employers who are not entirely honest with me and working for less than the market has told me I'm worth. Just it's the temporal shift that was the problem. But the fact of the matter is, right, is that as you said, if you die with money in the bank, that doesn't necessarily make you you're still dead. There's nothing left. So whether you save it all or whether you spend it, it's entirely it's whatever you're basically exchanging your life for, right? If you're going to work for somebody else, I really don't want some personal finance guru finger wagging at someone for enjoying a milkshake, first thing in the morning. It may not be my thing, but again, with the money that I the textbooks, so 3 more of the textbooks that I ordered came in. I'm super happy with them. They're awesome. And they're brand new, so they're all shiny in that. The used ones are still on their way. I'm going to enjoy reading them. Now, again, I've got my milestone that I want to hit, and I potentially could have hit that a little bit sooner. But I also just kind of took a look. I spent more than I was planning this month, and so I kind of said, I was like, okay, so wait till the credit card, is cycles, which is a little bit later. I kind of made a hard line to myself. I was you cannot spend anything until the next cycle, so that's a week. No coffee, no anything. And again, $2 isn't going to make the difference, but it's largely about discipline. You better believe, one of the things that I'm going to do is, I won't go to the movies. I'll sit down with one of these new books that I got and enjoy that. And yes, that makes me a complete nerd, but hey, isn't it nice that I've got something I enjoy doing and I'm not constantly worrying about some radio show making me feel bad for doing the thing that makes me happy. So you've firmly built your own house. Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's I'm not indifferent to a lot of the distribution issues. I do think it's sometimes a bit rich to hear people in North America go on about their tremendous problems, and again, it's not to say that there aren't, because I've actually spent quite a bit of time with community services for different organizations, including the Salvation Army. So I've worked at a food bank, I've worked in community services, I've worked in I didn't really work in the thrift store, but it was next door, so I'd give them a hand where things go in, and everyone from someone who's clearly gaming the system, and the fact that, there was no judgment made. If somebody's asking for help, we give the help no matter what we think their actual circumstances are. To people where, I wish I could have given double portions or whatever. Or, I wish I could have done more, or frankly, fighting the urge to just take whatever I have in my wallet and give it to them. So I definitely don't want to come off as callous, because and I'm in Canada, which is, definitely quite a bit better off than the States in a lot of cases. But if we do talk about, uneven income distribution, you do need to consider the global scale, and we're doing really well. That doesn't mean that everybody should be equally miserable, but it is something that gives perspective. So it's one of these ones I've always found kind of tough. And like, honestly, like, there is a value, there's a service that's being provided, there's a value that's attached to it. And one of the reasons why I find my field of study so interesting is that very little of it has anything to do with one sort of all-knowing being sort of sitting at the top saying, this thing is worth X and that thing is worth Y. So like for your, for your particularly index gnomes business or your business, what would my prior be in terms of the value of UX? Well, if I were to sit down and like put a dollar value to it, I would probably substantially undervalue it. But then my revealed preferences are the fact that I always keep buying Apple products because they largely behave in an intuitive fashion. And I'm clearly paying more for this product than I could for an alternative. And all of a sudden, we only need to look at Apple's market capitalization, and all of a sudden you get an idea about what that's worth. And then what sort of follows from that is I don't know how I can then turn around and say it's a bad thing that you're making that kind of money when, a cashier at my grocery store that I go to, isn't able to get a $250,000 car. It's like, well, there is, I'm not entirely sure the two situations are comparable. Yeah, that's the other thing too. I think there are some people who make quite a bit and they pay taxes and they don't do the sorts of things that are potentially available. Like, I don't necessarily, like, obviously you can lower your tax bill by taking advantage of what's available inside, but there's clearly, like, there's the stuff that you read about in the Panama Papers, and then there is, I paid it because, like, for me, I think the whole thing about paying taxes, and I'm by no means, particularly well, I'm doing well, like, either compared to my peers or compared to, even some of the people I knew working in film, except the ones who like own a Steadicam or anything like that. Like, I'm doing fine. But I'm not like, holy crap, I hit the jackpot here. That's still coming. But not through streaming though. The fact of the matter is that, clearly part of the taxes are to finance the conditions under which, businesses can succeed and flourish. And one of the things that's nice about the tax system is that if you don't reap the benefits from that, you don't pay as much. And if you do reap the benefits from it, obviously that kind of pays. You can think of it almost as a portfolio, right? Like Disney has a bomb, but then it has like Marvel movies and the money's made back. And I get it. Like, you look at the amount that you spend in taxes and that can like really, really make you mad. But then, you, like, for me at least, my personal value is not for me to do the best, in all circumstances. I would, if I could have the benefit of $1 billion, but I knew that everyone I looked around me, is living kind of like maybe I was when I was trying to establish myself in film, I would voluntarily give some of that back to make sure that I was living in a place, that was better off. But again, like, everybody's got their own perspectives on this. And of course, it'd be a lot more clever for me, or it would be a lot bit more honest of me to say this sort of stuff if I was in a position where I was actually like, particularly on the margins of certain Canadian tax brackets where they really do soak you. It'll be interesting to see if my opinions change if I ever get to that spot. If they asked for you to 10% more in tax, you would not complain. You live in Norway. Oh my God, yeah, I keep forgetting. Sorry, I know, because we talked about Daneland. No, we talked about Danish. I keep forgetting it's Norway though. But yeah, no, it's a tough one. I had not really a friend anymore. I will move on after this, but I had a friend, or used to be a friend, who, like, for the longest time, it was always like, big businesses and the wealthy are like an ATM, and that everything would be so much better if if just, if we could just soak them a little bit more and then pay for all of this cool stuff. And like, some of the profs that I went with in school, like I went to a pretty good school. So like, these are people who do actually wind up advising government. And like, they've run the numbers, right? They can pretty clearly show you what is and is not affordable in Canada. This is entirely beside the question of, democracy, right? Because you also need a population that votes for that. And populations don't uniformly vote for, raising taxes or for, increasing social spending on themselves. The electorate is a lot more intelligent than I want to admit. And I felt like after a while I was finally kind of getting through on the idea of why automatically assuming that you can just raise taxes on businesses and that will always result in good things is a very dangerous idea. And then, I don't know, they just started watching more YouTube, and obviously they, it's like any algorithm, right? It's going to play to your, your biases. And so, then he just went down the rabbit hole, and, again, I'm just hearing some really terrible arguments about, why in fact everything is affordable if only we taxed, people above, I don't know, median incomes or whatever, a certain amount. And, yeah. Sadly, people have the right to vote around here. Initial scans of the asteroid 333PT668 suggest a dense mass of wrought metal within it, perhaps part of some machinery or other technology. Further scanning required for more detailed data. Sometimes the voices in this are a little hard to discern.
Exploitation forecast complete.
There's definitely a few where there's just some typos, but there's a couple where it's just like it's written as a report as opposed to kind of more full prose, and I always get tripped up. Okay, so we'll send him to Faradex first. It's not the most important thing for me, but it does fill it out. Maybe not in my run. I guess there's it's kind of interesting. There's been a few different ways that science fiction has regulatory facilitation. Sorry. We should leave regulatory decisions to the experts. Industry leaders are the best qualified to identify wasteful regulations that impede productivity. We got a lot of Gaia worlds. I think we can afford some more pollution.
Research complete.
So I mean, there's the whole idea that people just have, various shares in the company, and so in this case, you'll have sort of a weighted influence, which I mean, obviously is kind of silly, right? It's like saying that, you give stock to employees and so they become co-owners. It's like, yeah, but like, are they actually able to, like, do they have a seat on the board? Like, obviously the proportions matter. But I know there've been a few where it's sort of one mega, I'm assuming this one here, it's like one megacorp, and but like clearly we're a criminal organization, so yeah, there's no way that we vote here. If rum was free, you wouldn't have to pay 90% in tax. Galantha herd secured. Galanthas are large, flat herbivores that have evolved internal gas pockets, enabling them to hover a few centimeters above the ground. They move about in herds consisting of a few dozen animals, grazing on the moss and lichen that can be found on the windswept plains of Mernaz 3A. They're ruthlessly hunted by the moon's apex predators, and our biologists on the ISS Irid Sak estimate that only a few hundred Galantha herds remain. One of these, consisting of 9 animals, has been successfully collected and will be brought back to Kirox's private stash. I didn't realize that it was 90% tax on... I guess it's called a sin tax, but 90% tax on alcohol in Norway. I know it's pretty high in Canada, but not that high. Machinery inside. As suspected, the asteroid 333 PT668 holds within it a great mass of metal and does indeed hide some manner of machinery. The gathered data clearly shows that its constituent parts contain great quantities of stored energy, but its purpose remains unknown, so we could proceed carefully or probe it. Yeah, we'll proceed carefully. Caution proved well in order. Hidden inside 333 PT668 was a host of old mining drones programmed to attack on sight. Science Officer Fargalek fortunately detected this early and was able to jam the drone's sensors long enough to disable them. The drone's cores are old indeed, but retain vast amounts of energy for siphoning. Unfortunately, way too far away for us to take advantage of it.
Research complete. We did it.
With Udlorans secured, the crew of the ISS Irid Naz has managed to collect a small group of Udlorans from the icy surface of Brius 3A. These white, furry omnivores wrap themselves into tight balls and roll across the moon's snowfields at astonishing speeds. One animal was clocked at over 80 kilometers per hour. This aided in their detection since the passage of their rolling forms kicks up huge plumes of swirling snow. I always really like that image. Okay, so basically they've got 7k fleet power to throw at us. Looks like they're kind of
I found something.
Staying put on fleet strength. SPO B63 is home to a number of exquisite impact craters. However, something breaks the visual uniformity in one of the larger craters. So again, the goal is still to get up to our fleet cap.
The profit margins on this tech.
Creating dedicated headquarters for all levels of military operations, shapes an efficient fleet, and lays a better foundation for future military training. So this may not... Yeah, this is probably not what I need to free up the... the agriculture tiles, but I definitely want to... As much as I would love to do nano vitality crops, I do need to start clearing out some of the worlds. That is starting to hurt our ability to produce things. The other, actually, so I can kind of see taxing alcohol. That's one that I'm sort of okay with, and smoking as well. One of the big challenges is, like, in Vancouver, it was getting a little ridiculous because of the number of places they were stopping you from being able to smoke. I have a couple of smoker friends. And, like, to be honest with you, I'm always a little worried about paternalistic regulations. So, like, the fact of the matter is that if you want to do something bad for you, you know, is it really my business to tell you whether or not you should do that? On the other hand, you know, we do have publicly provided health care, and that does impose a cost on the system. I certainly would not want a policy that says people who have done unhealthy activities shouldn't be treated, because I, you know, probably don't exercise as often as I should. And every once in a while I'll be like really good diet-wise, and then it's like, you know, hamburgers, hot dogs, you know, donuts, give me everything. So, you know, there's always the line. The thing I've always found, and like I kind of feel this way about a few things. So like gambling, particularly lotteries. In Canada, this is, I believe, done through the government. I know definitely in BC and Ontario it is. But, you know, the old saying of it being a tax on people who can't do math is pretty true. And to a certain extent, and like it's obviously not... Like, millionaires don't buy lottery tickets, right? And so, you know, you sometimes ask the question, like when I was looking at Vancouver and the number of ridiculous restrictions they were putting on smoking, I was like, well, why don't they just outright ban it? It's like, well, one, if it's municipal, they can't. But number two, like, why wouldn't the provincial government, why wouldn't the federal government ban it? New Zealand apparently is going to try to, but, you know, it's pretty clear why they don't. It's just the revenues are so high. You know, it's an inelastic good. It's like, you know, taxing fuel. But that I've always felt really bad about that because, you know, it does sort of mean that there's a particular group of people who the the public finances are falling on it. I'm not entirely sure that's the most just. And again, like they're willingly, like to a certain extent, like they're willingly doing it, right? But on the other hand, we do sort of know the issues of, problematic gambling and smoking and the various, habit forming activities. I mean, there's a reason why they're inelastic, and I've always felt a little uncomfortable with the fact that the government, which you would assume is sort of attempting to try and be in line, like you'd assume and you would hope that a government is focused on the well-being of its citizens, and so clearly being involved in those kinds of activities is maybe not consistent with that ideal. But then it's a really hard one to follow through. So it's like, okay, well, if the government shouldn't be in that business, should private business be in it? It's like, probably not. That would, I suspect, would be worse. It's like, okay, well, if private business can't be into it, government can't be into it, should we just ban it? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, whenever I see my friends at the casino, like, they just enjoy playing slots. They don't think they're going to get money out of it. But I don't know. Yeah, I know I might. Oh, yeah, okay, fair enough. You play the lottery. I know my dad does, but my dad, I wouldn't rate him as particularly, like, again, like he's a school administrator, so, fine middle class-ish kind of job, but, or was. I mean, he's retired now, but, yeah, and I mean, that brings me back to the coffee thing, right? Which is that, just the same way that I don't like personal finance gurus like really ripping into someone for doing something that they enjoy, because let's face it, that's why we go to work. I mean, some of us have really fulfilling jobs and we, we go to work because we love it, but most people go to buy the things that they want. And, this is the problem, right? Like, every time I say something like that, then I turn around and say it's like, should the government really be involved in things like gambling? That just happens to be another set of things. Like in this case, it's my particular set of like gripes that I have, and it's, I'll be honest, like I still haven't found a really good way of like trying to wriggle my way out of it. While the crater in question was most likely the result of regular meteorite impact, the complex patterns and the resulting depression originated at a later time. Science officer Tudaleric argues that these surface-level patterns are not the result of an impact but a collision, one between asteroid SP-0863 and some unspecified orbital installation or a ship of alien make. How odd. So we're building 5 cruisers, and then, same story, 10 destroyers, corvettes, so on and so forth. I do like the idea of the weaker of the two fleets being at the enemy border, just because it might give them an idea that we're weaker than we actually are. In 5 years, the truce is over. Here, the lottery system can't give back to a high percentage to the players to make it less attractive to play. Oh, that's really interesting.
Research complete.
Yeah, it's a tricky one too, because like honestly, the issue that I have is like it's the problem gambling, like the way the casinos are set up. I think in Ontario and BC is that there is apparently an active effort to define certain behaviors, and you do have the option of like asking for yourself to sort of be cut off. There's a number of different measures that are taken, but again, I just really don't know how effective they are. I've been largely unconvinced by the gambling arguments on things like loot boxes. That doesn't mean that I necessarily think they're the best practice in terms of gaming, because I think there are different ways of implementing it. I think the ones that people like to complain about are actually not really that bad of an example. There's some mobile stuff that I've seen where I'm like, I can't believe they get away with this. Again, it's just like the thing on that is that if it's a video game company, there's never been an expectation that these companies are going to do anything other than try and maximize revenues or profits. And in the case of, a, government state-run lottery or casino or whatever, sure, the expectation is that you'll make money, but it's not necessarily to, the optimization is not quite the same function as it would be under a private entity. The small rodent-like creatures known as Orinthi are native to Borbagon 2b, where their habitat extends across most of the moon's diverse climatic regions. They breed at an extremely rapid rate and seem to have particular fondness for chewing on electric cables. Procuring specimens was not a problem. In fact, after the initial creatures were collected, more of them had made their way into the From Beyond by hitching rides in the science ship's orbital shuttles. Exactly why the Museum of Exobiology requested Orinthi specimens remains a mystery. We gotta be getting close to the end of this quest line.
Anomaly
Doing well on
detected.
consumer goods again, so justified in not worrying too much about it. A vessel of some kind has crashed into the surface of this asteroid. Wreckage from the craft can still be found within the impact crater.
Wow, we really hit this tech out of the ballpark.
A naturally occurring subspace wormhole is a fickle thing, and its fluctuating energy levels typically make it impossible to travel safely between its linked apertures. There are ways to temporarily stabilize its matrix, however. That's that new sci-fi John Wick movie, right? Okay, we should probably do quantum hacking. It's such a cheap tech. Oop. And we got, I think this was our hangars, so that's good news for us there. Again, if I can find that FTL inhibitor, that would be great. I think probably better weapons at this point. I think it's a good idea, but missed the mark of keeping down the gambling. Hang on, sorry. This makes for more gambling, though, under the flag of now I play partly to support that kind of... Yeah, that's the biggest problem that I've run into. Like, so I'll be honest with you, I don't know how much the justifications really do... like, I don't know how much they really affect the overall decision, or if it just winds up sort of being the ex post justification. So that is to say that if they removed the... But I mean, then again, that's something that could presumably be checked by a policy analyst. Like, presumably you would see a shift in, in behavior in response to it. But yeah, I mean, that's the big challenge, right? Is that, it could be for a good cause. And again, like, I'm very... I hope it's coming off as I'm generally pretty permissive. Like, I do think people need to kind of be grown-ups and decide what they want to do and decide what's best for them. But, clearly, and I say this as somebody who, I mean, I've got my vices. There are some cases where people genuinely can't help themselves, and we recognize them as special conditions. Whether, I mean, this is one of the big problems about trying to think about whether or not the government is in a position to be able to, to manage this sort of stuff, is you do kind of need to ask the question, like, is the government actually in a position to responsibly run this thing? Like, what have they done to make sure that the people who shouldn't be doing this sort of stuff are in fact either getting the help that they need, or that they're not being sort of taken advantage of the system that they built? Because obviously, if you're the only person running it, you're the one to blame if it goes wrong or becomes something that exploits people. Right, crashed ore freighter. After identifying an anomaly in the gravity well of T119 LT47, the ISS Irid Rock has discovered the shattered wreckage of an ancient ore super freighter buried deep within the asteroid's crust. It must have carried a full load when it crashed, and the asteroid's mineral wealth has been revised accordingly. So once I think I said it... Encounter in Pyth. We made first contact with the mysterious aliens in the Pyth system. For now, we've codenamed them He-Aliens until we can find out more about them. If they possess a language, we should decipher it so that we can assess how much of a threat they pose. So I'm definitely not ready for that. I'm assuming this is an enclave of some kind. I'm going to pause for a second. Like a choir boy, never done anything you should not or could be bad for you. Well, good for you. I'm not too... I don't know. I'm broadly pretty boring, I would say. Okay, fleet power is down to superior, so that's good. But I do... I don't know, like I know, I kind of know my tendencies to overindulge in something, or like even just the book things, right? Like I think I've become institutionalized school-wise, because I tend to notice around the fall period, I will always wind up getting textbooks. They're really good textbooks, but sometimes you need to ask, like, do I really need that algorithms textbook? Like, am I actually going to need to sit down and optimize this thing? Probably not. Most of the problems I deal with, standard out-of-the-box, open source tools are fine. But like on the other, the reason I get them is because they're really interesting, and sometimes you don't have to learn something just for the sake of like it. Oh, interesting. It looks like there's a _ DSC under members. I wonder if that's. I'm guessing it's just because there's no federation. Huh, interesting. Might have been a lie. Fair enough. But yeah, no, like I'm really bad. You still buy physics and math related books all the time? Do you like are full-on textbooks or like, so it's kind of tough too, because like there's some really good, like particularly for physics. Like, Roger Penrose's Road to Reality seems like it's a mass market kind of book, but holy smokes, that thing goes down some pretty intense material. And I mean, even like Stephen Hawking is kind of like the gold standard for that sort of stuff. Like, it's probably not gonna like, you're not gonna like sit down and be able to to read like a full-on research paper after it, but I think it does a very good job of explaining why it's a very interesting subject, and why why you probably should be interested in it and such. So full-on textbooks, yeah. Man, both physics and chemistry are two that I would actually really like to understand better. I mean, I did what I had to get through high school, but I don't think I was quite in the state to really really get the benefit from it. Man, I've really been asleep at the switch. I gotta keep building up intel on our allies. So one of the things I was gonna say is, once this fleet is built, I'm mad that the new ship title was the one that they kept. But yeah, once this thing's built up, I'm going to recalculate what I need alloys-wise. I'm pretty sure we're going to be at full strength in time for the end of the treaty, but we're at the halfway point, so it wouldn't be bad to check in. You love reading research papers when you run into them? Like for physics and mathematics, or just in general? Like, most research I'm pretty rubbish with. I wish I was smarter for reading them, but for a lot of them, it's above me. Econ is obviously special. Hey, the exception. How you doing? But one source for econ I really like is Journal of Economic Perspectives, because I'm not going to say that. Like, you have to kind of be interested enough in the subject to be able to take it up and read it. But it's definitely, like, it's not econometrica. So if you were sufficiently motivated, I don't really think there's anything in there that would be too burdensome for an interested reader. And then on top of that, I think. So is it because we're... Yeah, it just says we can't establish a branch office here, so I'm wondering if it's just because... Well, here, let me check another thing. So we've got the Stellaris cannot be taken on this planet. Okay, so what about the Confederation? So I'm wondering if it's because we are Defensive Pact members. But yeah, so one, I think probably its real purpose is so that people who are specialists in one field will be able to sort of understand the work that's going on in others. So for instance, I know a thing or two about, economics of intellectual property, did, some time in political economy. I think I know price index theory quite well, which, with inflation, I suppose this is like the one time that will be cool for me to know that. But like labor economics or industrial organization, except maybe a little bit on lobbying, I don't know a whole lot about. But something like the JEP can kind of sort of fill me in on the literature so that I have a fighting chance to try and understand what's going on sort of in the state of the art. But I'll admit, like social sciences, I kind of feel like I'm okay. There's some sociology, like the really good sociology that does a lot of stuff on networks. I don't always necessarily follow. Political science, that sort of stuff. Again, the research methods are similar enough. Psychology, I tend to find a lot of problems, but that might just be because I don't quite understand what they're trying to do. But yeah, like if I were to take some of the hard sciences, like a biology paper, chemistry, physics, I'd be pretty lost pretty quickly. So what I was really looking to try and do is... Yeah, so it can build branch offices on the planet of any regular empire they have no war or truce with. So that doesn't say to me that defensive pacts are off limits. Empires that have the corporate authority can establish a branch office on another empire's worlds if the corporate empire has a commercial pact with is an overlord or is federated with the owner of the world, and there is not already a branch office of another corporate empire present. Branch offices cannot be established on the worlds of an empire with the corporate hive mind or machine intelligence authority. Branch offices give the corporate empire energy credits equal to 50% of the world's trade value, or 60% if the corporate empire has the free trader civic. Establishing a branch office costs 1,000 energy credits and 50 influence and increases the corporate empire's empire sprawl by 2. The cost sprawl can be reduced by the following: universal transactions and franchising. Branch offices can be closed by the corporate owner at any time if a branch office exists on a world after a commercial pact or federation is left or the subsidiary becomes independent. The branch office will remain open, but the world's owner will get the expropriation casus belli on the corporate. Okay, so... Empires with a criminal heritage can establish branch offices without the need of a commercial pact or other relationship. Their branch offices generate energy credits normally based on the world's trade value, but generate additional energy credits based on the world's crime value, ranging from 25% of trade with 0 crime to 75% with 100 crime. Criminal heritage corporate empires do not have access to the regular corporate buildings and use a unique set of corporate buildings that increase the planet's crime. All right, so it still doesn't really tell us whether or not the defensive... So the psychology is only a pseudoscience, and you'll stick with that statement. I mean... There is a really nasty reputation that like there's the idea of economic imperialism, which has nothing to do with imperialism as people tend to think of it, and entirely sort of the work of Gary Becker, who's an amazing economist, by the way. Died relatively recently. He actually got a great blog with Richard Posner. And he was really responsible for bringing economics to a lot of fields that people wouldn't necessarily associate with the study. But for him, the idea of sort of these rational optimizing agents was a very powerful lens through which you could examine some pretty important questions. I think a lot of people dislike that way of working because either they feel that it ignores the work that the field has been working on, or you know, I don't think this is a healthy point of view, but I know some people think it is, that, you know, the sciences kind of need to stay in their lanes, so they're, you know, you're not allowed to talk about it if you're not a member of the group. I think that's nonsense, because of course some of the most interesting developments have usually come from different fields sort of coming together and learning from each other. So I don't really put a lot of stock in that. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that there is a nasty and not entirely unearned reputation for econ sort of kind of walking in, making a bunch of noise, ignoring the contributions of others, and kind of pretending it has all the ideas. But with that in mind, right, like, I did say that when I read some psychology, I'm not entirely convinced, and I wonder if it is because there is a different goal that's being pursued, or, you know, I mean, clearly some of this stuff in psychology, like, from what I understand, the ocean measure, like, is somewhat quantifiable and not a bad predictor of other material. I know this kind of came up with some of the Cambridge Analytica stuff, and I suppose to a certain extent, if you believe that Cambridge Analytica successfully brainwashed people into voting a certain way, or if you think that there were other factors, you may or may not want to hold that as an example. But like, with that in mind, like, there does seem to be at least some work that is being done that is sort of recognized and has some claim to having
Prospect analyzed.
You know, kind of delivered the sort of testable result that you would want out of, you know, out of good work. But I mean, I think the replication crisis in psychology definitely communicates there's a big problem in that field that they're still trying to work on. Hey, Tiberiosity, how you doing? By the way, I want to try and be better at this. Tiberiosity is also another streamer who I don't get a chance to watch, but I know he's been a really big supporter of Night Valian, and I don't want the fact that I don't get a chance to visit someone as often to get in the way of being able to shout them out. If I recall correctly, you are still going through Halo Infinite, but my apologies if my information is outdated. But like, obviously too, like, as I was really into Joseph Campbell for a while, and that led me to reading Jung, and, you know, I liked it. The big thing that actually turned me off a lot of the original, so like, the thing is, I would never turn to this to psych. It's kind of like going to Aristotle to learn about economics. Like, it's just not, it's not really what people are doing anymore. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't interested in it at the time. But the thing that really turned me off of it was when I went to like a few presentations on Jung in, you know, in Vancouver, and like, it definitely got into some pretty weird material, and that's like kind of where I learned like a little bit more about what Jung was about, and I'm like, well, not quite my thing. But that's definitely making psychology, like, that's definitely burdening psychology with a lot of stuff that I don't think it's actually interested in. So some manner of artificial structure peeks out from between the toxic clouds of Atramite 4's atmosphere. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge factor. I mean, it's obviously, it's kind of like when you look at the history of that subject, like, the first moves can be really important ones. They can be ones that open a way of thinking that leads to a very productive way of thinking of certain things. Like, again, sorry to bang on about econ so much, but if you think of like the history of economic thought, to have the mercantilist system, so people like Colbert, who are incredibly capable and intelligent administrators, nobody can really question the power of France at the time that these ideas are put together. And then getting somebody like Adam Smith to sort of sit down and say, no, this is totally wrong. Like, this is what the wealth of nations is. That's why it's called that. And to see this really big argument about why this way of looking at things is better is huge. But, despite what Noam Chomsky might say, like, economists do not sit down and refer to Adam Smith like the Bible. There's a number of people I know who do like frontier kind of research who've never read The Wealth of Nations, don't see any benefit to reading The Wealth of Nations other than as this kind of interesting kind of intellectual curiosity. I'm more interested in it because I also have my philosophical interests. And then, of course, you also have other figures. So there's like Thomas Malthus, and there's David Ricardo, there's Walras. There's like all of these other people who've kind of helped build up our understanding. But obviously, you kind of need to be careful in terms of what you're trying to look for. So if you want to understand what's going on, obviously we have the benefit of, more and more data. We have, if you look at the way economics was practiced, even in like the old day, like even if you kind of think about some of the old stuff, not like super old, but like, how it was practiced maybe before computers, there was kind of like a space for a lot of papers that were just pure theory. Whereas now there are really good theoretical contributions, but they tend to be attached with an empirical example. And that's definitely, people have some higher expectations as far as evidence are concerned, at least in terms of the particular field that I work in, which again, I mean, has something of a tenuous grip on whether or not it's actually, a serious discipline. I know not everybody necessarily thinks that about econ. But, in the case of psychology, definitely for a really long time, they've pursued these, novel publishable results, and unfortunately created a set of incentives where, the results that were being reported were not necessarily ones that reflected a broader truth. And I think that's, when you say here, we've got better tool sets today to measure the results, I think to a certain extent, that's why that stuff has been discovered. But unfortunately also means that with all of the power that we have to be able to sort of ask some really tough questions that are important to psychology and will really help us gain an understanding, we also have to sort of unpack a lot of really perverse incentives that were created under the sort of the publishing requirements that they had. And by the way, I don't think psychology is the only one that's affected by that. I think there's plenty of disciplines which probably have some skeletons hiding in the closet. Strong energy emissions of an unknown origin. Sorry, I know I've been monologuing a whole lot, but I was feeling at the start of the stream, I was feeling the way I was feeling at the end of the last stream, and we did survive the war, so do I get a bit of a break? I don't know. Strong energy emissions of an unknown origin make this asteroid stand out from the rest of its peers in a crowded asteroid field. I'll try and play the game while I say this. I remember there was one psychology paper that really bugged me because it came up a lot in like gaming websites. And it was this paper about how, like, it was supposed to be that you are more likely to say misogynist things in the like in a chat, like a game chat, if you were bad at the game, or the other way around, like oh god, yeah. I mean, if we want to talk about old school mathematics, I am all for that. And yeah, no, I don't want to try and communicate at all. I will obviously the old time stuff I'm talking about is we're definitely not at Eratosthenes territory. I'm definitely more just a couple hundred years back, not a couple thousand. Wait, Eratosthenes. Oh God, am I getting the wrong? No, Eratosthenes is classical mathematician. Like 80% sure. Yeah, so slightly different time scale from what I'm talking about, but yeah, no, I would definitely be. I mean, to a certain extent, there are times where you need to say like this was a very good insight for its time, but not something that we can base our understanding off of. So a great example here would be Democritus and atomism. Okay, cool. So it was classical figure. It's very embarrassing when I misdate a thinker by a few thousand years. But yeah, so clearly atomism did influence our modern understanding of chemistry. Also, atoms as we know it. Well, I'm trying to think, would it be more appropriate to say chemistry or physics? I guess we're kind of in that realm where it kind of blends between the two. It's also fair to say that atomism as understood today relative to what Democritus, Epicurus, Lucretius were talking about. I think Epicurus had an atomistic view of the world. It's nothing like what we understand today. It's a helpful framework for thinking about things, but the idea of, well, I mean, even the idea that the atom is the smallest unit maybe doesn't quite hold up for them. But even like the idea of certain types of mixing, or the idea of what kind of causes the atoms to sort of be in sort of collision and everything, or the idea that they sort of have little hooks on them which cause them to be all mixed together. And again, that actually turns out to be a very powerful idea that did lead to an insight, but it's not necessarily something that I would want to base a modern understanding of the world off of. Or even something like Aristotle in his defense of slavery, to one extent is a very progressive point of view, because before him, nobody thought that it was something that needed to be justified. The fact that he tried to justify it also indicates the amount of work that needed to be done, because clearly that is not, it's my view at least, he's very mistaken in those views, and his arguments aren't really good ones. But yeah, I mean, I'm also really starting to get off from the topic that you're on, which is it tends to be a lot of mathematical insights of the ancients are actually ones that really nailed. I mean, even some Egyptian mathematics, they didn't seem to have the same kind of they didn't seem to be as obsessed with proofs, and so it's sometimes hard to talk about them in the shadow of the Greeks. Because they did these really amazing approximations, but there just seems to be something about getting an exact number and having a proof for it and understanding why that is. There seems to be a tremendous amount of power behind that. But I mean, there's some really ingenious mathematics there, even if it's just attempts at approximation. And like obviously, approximations are very useful in terms of actually getting things done. And certainly, it's hard to say that the Egyptians didn't get things done. Exotic radiation. The particular asteroid is an extrasolar capture, and it appears to have been washed by some kind of exotic radiation as it plummeted through the interstellar space before finally settling in the Siniagawa system. The original source of this radiation remains unknown, but the ISS Lorad Nergal has been able to pick up a wealth of physics data by studying the asteroid's energy emissions. Yeah, okay, sorry, I get exactly what you mean. But yeah, sorry, the one thing I was wanting to talk about was a psychology paper. So, like, I get why you want to report this. I get why this is something that a gaming paper wants to talk about, right? which is people who are misogynists are bad at games. Let's all have a laugh at them. The problem that I have with this is what exactly is the claim? Is the claim that you are a misogynist because you're bad at games? Is it right? Or is it that being a misogynist makes you bad at games? Like, is there an idea about why, like what the mechanism for this relationship is? And then I took a look at the paper, and it seemed to rely on this thing, like a Poisson regression, which is traditionally used when you're working with counts. But it does have, like, so this whole thing kind of rested on finding this significant difference. You know, that it's like, okay, you know, the people who scored low on this quality of gaming metric, you know, went through. So, like, even leaving aside the whole question, like, what are you kind of trying to claim here? I mean, you can kind of see how you could kind of tap dance around it too, right? Like, you know, you're spending too much time worrying about this thing that's irrelevant to the game, that, you know, you're not good at gaming or whatever. But then, of course, there's plenty of ways you can poke holes in that. But the thing is that, like, the empirics on it, the Poisson regression does have a problem known as overdispersion. So you can get correct estimates out of it, but in the case of overdispersion, which does come up very frequently, your errors can become too small. And if your errors are small, that means that when you get statistical significance, it might be because of this, basically this negative feature of your, you know, of the regression that you're running. So there's a way to detect overdispersion. There's also a way to correct it for it. If you run a negative binomial regression, you should be able to get a result that's robust to overdispersion. So I ran that test on the paper because they made the data available, which, to their, big credit to them, because not everybody does. But sure enough, do the test.
Complete.
The overdispersion's present. And then I kind of did the same thing through a negative binomial, and the result completely vanishes. Like, any significance they found out of it is just gone, and like gone in it's not even like a marginal way. It's just totally, like, the whole paper's gone as a result of that. And it's a shame, right? Because, like, it's
Prospect analyzed.
I realize that gaming, like, the gaming press does not necessarily have the time or the skill set to sit down and, like, really take a paper to task. But it's just one of these examples of, like, somebody did a research paper to come up with a conclusion that we all really wanted to believe, and the outfits kind of reported it because, again, it's the thing we all sort of want to believe. And it really has nothing to do with when someone dies when they eat a burger is not the same as he died as a result of eating that burger. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm sure you already know about statistical significance. And this is the thing, like, maybe they weren't trying to make a causal argument, but then I'm sort of asking, well, what's the point of the paper, right? Like, what do we learn by saying that there's higher incidence of misogyny among people who are bad at games? And again, it's just one of these ones where, because we're in a time where I think a lot of people really feel that a lot of studies are just people trying to get the conclusion that they were looking for, right? Like, either whether or not there was a business that funded the research, or, you're of a particular political stripe. Which, by the way, like, one thing that is kind of interesting, when people talk about, like, whether or not carbon taxes are a partisan issue, Greg Mankiw, new Keynesian economist, is a big Republican advisor, and he's like president of the Pigu Club. Like, he really likes carbon taxes. So that kind of gives you an idea of how, like, I know there's the people who talk on TV, and then there's the people who actually do work. It's usually people who do work don't necessarily have very strong political views. But But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you already know about significance. But for those of you who don't know, like when I'm talking about significance, basically, you want to put a certain, you want to be able to quantify whether or not what you found. So you can see a difference between two things. But one thing you want to quantify is whether or not that difference is more than what you'd sort of normally see just through the fact that we live in this world and this set of events, and this was the survey that we pulled. And so that difficulty I was talking about that with that psychology paper was that they relied on a method that will generally give you results that say that you have found a meaningful difference between these two categories. But there are tests that you can run to see whether or not you actually satisfy the assumptions of that particular method. And those clearly weren't run for that paper, because when you did, like, the whole thing fell apart. So probability is the math you love the most. Man, probability is so hard. I didn't realize this at the time, but there was a math proofs instructor that I had, a guy named Ed Perkins, who is not just a fellow of the Royal Society of Canada, but actually the Royal Society in the UK. So very, very smart guy. I only found that out after I'd been asking him the stupidest math questions, like, for the whole term. But turns out he's like, that's his field, probability. So I really missed out on an opportunity to to learn more. I mean, it was proofs. It was kind of like an introduction to analysis. It's like the class you take before you do analysis. So, probably was outside of the scope of what we would have talked about anyway. But apparently he met Kolmogorov. It was a very small meeting. I think he was swimming, and a bunch of mathematicians were visiting Russia. He was one of them, and got a chance to say hi. And then he went back to swimming apparently. But that is my anecdote about a huge, huge math figure. Mind you, saying I got to, sit in Ed Perkins' office and chat about very simple math stuff. That's not bad. Just I know Ed Perkins isn't exactly like a big name. I guess if you're in probability, probably it's a bigger name. But Rukegaix reports that the artificial construction located on Arfmike, Jesus, 4 is not a structure at all, but rather a colossal robot from a bygone age. This aging mechanical behemoth lies disabled in the mountains, slowly being corroded by the volatile acids that rain on Arfmike 4. It has notable weapons capabilities and appears to be built as an unmanned spaceship. If we want to make use of it, we will need to act swiftly before the corrosive environment of Arfmike 4 renders the robotic warship wholly inoperable. Really? This thing's been rusting away in the corrosive atmosphere for centuries, and just now is the moment where... Yeah, all right. Pull it out.
Log updated.
There's no possible way we're going to reach this thing in time. I mean, we'll go for it, but... Actually, I did get... Princeton University Press has a good series called, I guess, Lifesavers. The first one was like the calculus lifesaver, but apparently they've done one for real analysis, and then the other is for probability. The probability one's a nice, big, thick book. And I think it's got like some Python examples. It's got a little Mathematica. So I got that during one of their... Like, I don't think they had it this year, but every once in a while, they'll have these really, really good sales where, like, everything's half off or something.
This tech had better generate some revenue.
I've really been wanting to sit down and dig into that because, like, I know enough probability to, like, do what I need to do, but it's not one that I feel like I have a real command of. And I think that's a perfect kind of book for me because it's intended to supplement a textbook. So, lots of hands-on problems, lots of things for me to sit and think about. Because usually whenever I've learned probability, it's been it's kind of been like an input. So like I've been learning that so that I can learn some other thing. And, it's obviously, there's something about probability where, like, the idea, so we can think about randomness, but the fact that there is a structure to that randomness, and that structure is actually something with which you can pull out a lot of very useful information, or some very, like I guess the idea is, like, when you sit down and you just say, well, that's all, it's just random, right? Normally we associate that with, I don't know, unpredictable, or like there's just not a lot that you can do about it. But learning that, in fact, that this thing that we kind of colloquially associate with, like a lack of structure, actually does have this very specific structure, and it's something that underlies a lot of a lot of our understanding of the modern world. Like, for instance, a lot of the advances in AI are actually kind of coming not through the stuff they were looking for, back when, Lisp was the language you'd use to do all of that stuff. I guess it still kind of is, but, it does tend to be these more statistical and probabilistic methods that really seem to have produced a lot of really big breakthroughs, as opposed to these, like, big symbolic machines, or things that, like, you can kind of point to all of the different potential combinations, and it just does a really good job of sorting through all of them. So what got you into probability was when you started to look into when luck turns into being too lucky. Oh, that is a neat one. This probably won't be quite where, like, I don't think this will quite set you on fire in that sense, but if you would like an interesting book that sort of, it's hard for me to say it's a really good probability book, but because obviously probability is tied really close to statistics, if you've not read it, there's a book called The Lady Tasting Tea. And in addition to the fact that I actually think it's a really nice book on statistics, it's a wonderful kind of survey of how statistical thinking sort of shifted a perspective in terms of a lot of sort of scientific thinking, and sort of the figures that led to it. There's definitely some interesting characters inside of it, but what I noticed, that was a book that, in addition to really enjoying it, I actually wound up picking up a couple of other books as a result of reading some of those figures. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't give it as a probability result, but I really say it more because, yep, David Salzberg. Apparently his follow-up book is not very good, or at least that's what the Amazon reviews seem to say, so I haven't checked out that one. But I very much enjoyed The Lady Tasting Tea. I actually wound up, I read it, but I wound up getting a copy for myself. I'm probably going through it a second time. But actually read it on a very happy trip to Montreal, where I got to meet a couple of game developers. So lots of fond memories of it. But yeah, again, like, I only say this because, probability tends to lend itself to statistics, at least in terms of conversations with me, because it's just something I know a little bit better. But I think also just because you do seem to have an interest in the sciences writ large, and obviously because you've mentioned a couple of major historical figures, I kind of think like that might be a book that holds some appeal to. Like, again, it's a popular book. It's not going to be something that you sort of need to sit down and, like, have a notepad to, like, work through the equations for. But I found it a worthwhile one, and I mean, I actually learned a couple statistical things that I didn't know about, because statistics and econometrics are in fact two distinct disciplines. Econometrics is not just statistics applied to economics. It has a whole other set of problems that it needs to deal with. So you have a copy of it in the box. Okay, did you wind up reading it? Was that a good recommendation, or is it not one that you didn't care too much for? Primitive encryption systems stand no chance against modern decryption tools. So hopefully that'll help us get eyes on our ally. We can get better encryption, but let's maybe focus on our military. Yeah, auxiliary fire control. I think we're going to need every little advantage we can get. I know I'm half an hour over, but I've also been really chatty tonight, so I'm going to try and push it where I can. Ugh, it's past midnight. I actually have a video to record.
Prime for production.
Okay, first up, we will convert it into a Gaia world. So New Bell Life Seeding turns the planet into a Gaia world by deploying... I wonder why it says an Gaia world. Does anybody pronounce Gaia with a vowel? By deploying gene-tailored plant life injected in with the unique Bale ability of organic terraforming. Our environmental specialists are pleased to report that the terraforming process on Castor Prime has completed. The planet has been successfully transformed into a Gaia world, owing to our deployment of laboratory-created plant hybrids containing carefully selected segments of the Bal genetic code. Once again, as a result of the process itself not quite fully understood by our geneticists, a number of new Bal populations have appeared planet-side, emerging when terraforming neared completed. We suppose we'll have to deal with them. Excellent, more slaves, or incredible. Again, helpful to have servants. So as usual, we'll start with our basics.
Resource scan complete.
Gene clinic. Not too much agriculture-wise. We'll start with generators. Yeah, I guess I didn't need to enslave them in that case. Yeah, it's all good, Index Gnome. I mean, it's kind of why I do this thing. I mean, it's also not like I haven't made any progress in the game. The thing is, like, I was kind of counting on... Like, I definitely thought that I was potentially going to be on my way out on this. I mean, we're still 4 years away from a potential war, and we don't have our fleets ready to go yet. But we've definitely got sort of like a fighting chance. Also, there's one thing... Oh. How much is the base value? Guess we'll find out. And in 240 days, I'm also going to have to start pursuing the galactic market. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge. But yeah, I don't know, like... This is definitely going to be more of a struggle. So... Being able to just kind of chat about stuff is not unwelcome. Okay, we don't have the influence for it. I mean, I do need to be thinking a little bit about where, where I'm going to want to put my, or like, put the offices closer to home. There is a side of me that thinks, like, maybe it's better that I don't get sucked into a war with these guys, because I don't know what their military capabilities are, but I'm guessing they're more of a liability than anything. Still, probably better to put a united front against the neighbors. The other thing too is that it's entirely possible that the... Oh my god, we're almost 100... Jesus. So yeah, I actually think I have a strategy for these guys. So clearly, priority number 1 is to get my fleets in order.
I found something.
425, LF4 periodically spews an alarmingly eclectic mix of particles and radiation into the void.
Research complete. We did it.
Tessergoid secured. The Tessergoid is an extremely lethal predator that stalks the dense jungles of Neshmet 4A at night, paralyzing its prey with electric shocks before sucking their brains out with its tube-like mouth. Unfortunately, 3 of the crew members of the ISS Irid Nas were lost to these creatures before specimen could be secured. The Museum of Exobiology on Kirox's private stash will rename one of the wings after the brave officers to honor their sacrifice. But yeah, again, priority number 2 is to get up to the fleet cap. But it's not at all guaranteed that the war starts right away. In fact, the stronger our military, the less likely they are to go to war with us. So, a kind of the other consideration will be, can I get those branch offices opened in time once the 4 years have passed. We're always on the lookout for more downline distributors. Care to join the Triumph family? What kind of offer? I'd like to offer you the exclusive Triumph Bauble collection. This assortment of fashionable trinkets and gewgaws is sure to both dazzle and distract your populace. All this for the low, low price of 500 unity. The mechanical process of zeitgeist absorption is poorly understood and can be unnerving, but is completely harmless. Actual value of the consumer goods may vary in the eye of the beholder. So what am I getting here? 1,000 consumer goods? Go to hell. Not interested. You tend to be very cautious starting wars, so you compensate by forcing yourself to start wars. The one thing I really wish I had was better intelligence on what the enemy's packing.
Resource scan complete.
I think as a whole, we will do fine on a fight with them. In fact, I would argue that even if they had a superior fleet status, we might still be able to pull off a war against them. But I really don't like that might, because as you've seen, like when I screw it up, like I really screw it up. And the other thing too is, like, if I want to start a war with them, it is worth remembering, right? I've only just got my Empire Sprawl under control. So, like, do I really want to add this much territory to my, to my empire, only to, like, to have to be back into mismanagement again? It's a tough pill to swallow. So, after recent visit of the Orlan Memorial Caravan to Subra 1 habitat, it has been noticed that a number of resources are missing from the Central Reserve. It is suspected that the Orlan Memorial Caravan somehow made off with them, but it's only 200 credits. We can kind of afford that. Okay, I'm going to take stock. So I should upgrade this thing. It sucks because it's 476 alloys. We definitely could use those. But, again, it's got to happen at some point, right? So let me just take a second. Where are the science opportunities? Not clear, so. At harder difficulty levels, you can't just sit and wait with building fleet, thinking you can just build one when it's needed, and doing so be able to build the optimal one just for that war. Yeah. I'm slowly working my way up the difficulty levels back to what I used to play at. So I sometimes wonder if a couple of these times where I've been, like, beaten down, it's because I've developed some bad habits. But on the other hand, like, I mean, the original justification for lowering the difficulty was, it's been a while, let's get back into Stellaris. So I think that was fine. Then I boosted it up, and I think what happened was I had a particularly bad session which had nothing to do with my play and just everything to do with a tough set of circumstances that I didn't manage well. But I kind of feel like I'm learning the game again. The biggest one for me, honestly, though, is I'm terrible at ship design. Fleet composition I don't know a whole lot about. And I really feel like I should be bringing a bit more to those. But I mean, then again, the game kind of turned around and hid a lot of that information from me in the form of the espionage system. Anyway, sorry. So I'm encouraged to see that we're at 5.3K, unless they've done something to severely improve their big... so it's possible that this is the small fleet that's been upgraded as opposed to
Log updated.
the big fleet that I think it is. Birth of the Galactic Market. The customers, clients, and rubes of the galaxy at long last seem ready to accept a quasi-centralized platform for deregulated mid-scale international commerce. We can promote one of our worlds to play host to this commercial hub to maximize potential revenue. So, decisions nominate for Galactic Market Hub. Yeah, we're definitely going to do that. The Senate has voted and passed on the resolution form of the Galactic Market, so we're definitely going to put some effort behind that. I have a feeling this is going to cost me quite a bit. So yeah, 1,000 nominate this planet as a trade hub candidate for the coalescing Galactic Market. Ooh, that takes a lot of influence. Okay, well, we'll build it up. Probably means I'm going to have to hold back on the corporate offices for a bit. But yeah, one of the things I wanted to do was... wanted to kind of take stock of where we are in terms of our goals. So, if I'm not mistaken, we've got... So I do still want to prioritize the cruisers where I can, because those take about a year to produce each, and we've only got 4 years before the war starts, potentially starts. So I need one more cruiser, so we should be on time for that. Obviously, I can also keep... actually, I should also update the cost, because I have a feeling that they might cost more now. 649, okay. So we need to go full destroyers on this, so that's 10 at 311. And 20 corvettes at 151. So double that, we get 302. So... Okay, and all of that together. Oops. I think 6,779. I've been streaming, so let's make sure that I'm not completely out. Hey, I got it right for once. Okay. So we need 6,779, assuming that we continue at the rate of alloy acquisition. I say acquisition because we're trading for a lot of this. That's 74 months. So that's 6 years. So we're still actually behind what we need to build the full fleet in time for a war. Which I will confess surprises me a little bit. I actually thought we were, on track. Now the good news is that it was looking at a point that we wouldn't even have one full fleet ready to go. Like we'd have to put everything into getting that extra fleet. So we're already ahead of where we thought we would be. But the ideal for me, of course, would be that we've, okay, we don't have the FTL inhibitor, but it sure would be nice if we could at least have some, defensive structures and all of that built at our major choke point. So we'll see. But that's useful information for me here, which is that if I was... So I need 6,779 to be able to build the full fleet that I want. At the rate at which I'm acquiring alloys, I'm not necessarily going to be able to achieve that ideal in the period of time it's going to take me to potentially open a war. I need to potentially reconsider how I'm going to approach things. I also want to take a second here and just see if there's anything we can do to try and earn ourselves a little more. They want conquest, local rivalry. Oh. Cards on the table, reptilians. We never really liked you. Oh, really? Why is it falling, though? I was just doing that to try and get the influence up. I wouldn't have done that if I... Oh. Playing Grand Admiral all the time, but you get your arse kicked more often than you wish. Sometimes the lady asks you why you walk so strangely after you leave the PC. Yeah, I've done a couple Grand Admiral. It wasn't like... I don't know. I don't know if I'm good enough to like consistently play at that level, but I think it's also nice to just try and push yourself. But I mean, also too, right? Like, I don't really play this like a strategy game. This is definitely much more of like a narrative RPG for me. So I think it's just a question of getting into another mindset. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to think what I can do. I mean, I am making some decent cash. Oh, right. No, sorry. I wanted to try and appeal. Okay, so local rivalry, Imperial hegemony, Leviathan Slayer. So these are things that we can't really help them out with. The one throne group. Yeah, don't have subjects. The Supremacy Party. Yeah, I mean, we've done about everything we can to keep the factions happy, so...
Resource scan complete.
I'm actually wondering if this might be a good time to call it. Illicit matter. The ISS Lorod Nirgal finds a disturbing tangle of technology hidden in a deep crater on the asteroid's surface. Evidently, someone has, with rather simple means, managed to stabilize a one-way wormhole, and Science Officer Taudrelek quickly asserts that the asteroid is the exit point. The other end opens up somewhere in uncharted space, some light years away from a black hole, and small quantities of dark matter are leaking, being siphoned through the wormhole. Whoever set this up seems to have abandoned the operation. So the dark matter would be wonderful, but we're nowhere near Impaltov.
We really hit this tech out of the ballpark.
Okay, we can clear some tile blockers, which is good. With the advent of clean fusion, automation, and matter compression technologies, it was only a matter of time before mountaintop removal became mountain range removal. Let's take a look at what we've got tech-wise. Farming subsidies wouldn't hurt. Food has definitely been something that we can trade with. There is the temptation with neural implants because, being able to have large armies would help us with conquest, but there's no guarantee that we're actually going to try and start a war. So let's start with food processing. I think I'm going to call it there. My apologies if this is a little too chatty for people, but I enjoy it. I mean, this is the big thing for me. I really enjoy interacting with all of you. And it's nice to have people, particularly who have interests that are like within the ballpark of stuff that I'm into, but like let me learn more stuff, or like get a bit of a window onto a much more bigger and interesting world. So thank you for that. Particularly, I mean, this is the second Stellaris stream where I've really not been feeling 100%. And the worst time was this one. Like, I started feeling not great. So the fact that you've all done a good job of dragging me into a longer... Stop! Sorry. You're going to hear like 100 YouTube videos in the background. The fact that, you kind of got me to slump over the finish line with, with some extra time, I don't know. It felt worth it for me. So thank you all for doing that. I'm going to host Night Valiant. I know maybe we're all getting used to that being a regular thing, but he's definitely somebody who I like watching. Particularly, I like watching him play Into the Breach, which he's playing tonight. So I think he's an excellent choice. A couple of other people you might want to check out. Ponce is doing Notia. It is D-Pain is actually a really nice streamer, but he's doing Dead by Daylight, which isn't quite my cup of tea. And he also usually is wrapping up around this time. So that's a couple of other streamers I can recommend for you. As for me, there is another Oblivion episode that's coming up tomorrow. I was able to get that recorded. I actually have to record a Cultist Simulator episode tonight as well, but that one will be coming up on Wednesday on YouTube, and then I will definitely try to have one ready to go for Friday as well. As far as the live broadcasts are concerned, I will be back Wednesday. I suspect it will be Phantom Brigade this time around, but as always, stay tuned, because if there isn't an update, I won't be playing it. I'll be going back to Industries of Titan, seeing if we can finish it before the new update comes out. And Friday, we had a great time with Darkest Dungeon, so I'm almost certainly going to be playing that again. But as always, stay tuned. And I know Christmas is coming up, so for those of you who are possibly going out and spending some time with family, don't get a chance to stop by the stream, if you have very happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever you want to mark it as. Certainly, I would lose my sanity if I didn't have a chance to chat with all of you. And I want to do my best to appreciate that as much as I can. So take care of yourselves. I will see some of you on one of the other broadcast days.